All right. Hello, all. Thanks for being here. Starting on a great note. Hello, all. Thanks for stopping by. This is the Small Council, which we have 9 p.m. Eastern on Saturdays. If you watch us on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. We are we are streaming on YouTube. We've shown on YouTube 3 days a week, and we're streaming here 4 days a week. So anyway, stop by on our live recording, and we'd love to have you here as well. Okay, I'm going to introduce all of my amazing guests here, and we'll go from there. We'll start from Wick. Wick, thank you for being a part of this. As always, Wick is a great individual and always someone I want to talk to because usually they disagree with me. It's a lot of fun talking about. So, Wick, how are you?
Oh, I'm okay. Like I said, I just got home from the movies, The Northman. Excellent movie. I had heard a little bit about it before I went in and heard it was pretty intense. They weren't lying. Check it out. I'm excited to be here to talk about the topic at hand, filial responsibility. Should be fun. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Next, we have Sly Jenks back with us. It was just here Thursday for All Black Everything. And here it was again, because, you know, I pick the people who don't have a life. Sly Jenks, how are you?
I'm doing really great, actually. I was literally waiting for that DM all day today, so I'm so glad you sent it. And I made sure I'd be prompt. But yeah, thank you for having me, and I really look forward to talking about this as well.
Seriously, thanks for stopping by. Next, we have someone I like a lot. His name is B-More. B-More, we don't get enough of him. He's a busy guy, right? And in an unfortunate time zone. But B-More, thanks for allowing me to recruit you after the show started. So B-More, thank you for being around.
I don't even know what the subject is.
Did you look? I DM'd you. I DM'd you the
If
subject.
it's not gun control, I don't want to be here.
Okay, all right.
No, I'm playing. Anyway, I was just being a good mod, talking to our guests, and then Prime got real desperate and begged me. It's like, B-More, we need you. There's a lot of cold takes here, especially from Wick. We need someone to spice it up. And I said, you know what, Prime, you know I got that. I got that on deck. So I decided to show up. That's it.
My man B-More actually is a great mod. And then also, yeah, thank you for coming on the rescue. Wick was going to drag this whole show down. Let's go.
Saved it.
Let's go to Corey Campbell. We only had once before, but we had enjoyable. I think once before. I don't fucking know. We had an enjoyable experience. Whatever it was, we had a really enjoyable experience with them, and it was memorable, and I hold it in my heart. Corey, thanks for being around.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. Super appreciate it. Super grateful to be here. I'm Corey Campbell, and I do politics, science, etc. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Now, after I guess that a dog. Panting.
I hope that's a dog.
Oh yeah! Oh my god, that would have been
interesting. I told you, I got.
I really hope that's a dog. Like, what?
Okay, all right.
I mean, what else could it be?
I mean, move away. Is it me?
No, I know.
Just not touching this.
So
they follow me everywhere. It's hard. Here's the other one. Where is it? Right there. Look at this. I can't get away.
All right. Well, the be more stuff life. All right. Last but honestly the best, and the person I've been waiting for, person I always want more of my life. That's Katie. Katie is back with us, right? Katie is going to have some of the best takes, right? Even if she disagrees with me, somehow I'll agree that it's one of the best takes of the night, right? Mm-hmm. Second most, because mine is always the best. But Katie, thank you for stopping by. I'm super psyched just to see you and have you around. How are you doing, Katie?
I don't know if my mic is okay. Is it okay?
Yep.
Sounds good.
Is my mic okay?
Yeah, we said yeah. Maybe not your sound.
Shut up. I'm good. Thank you for having me. I have a cat to up your dog's And yeah, we'll see what's up.
Okay. All right. So why don't we just break into it? This was a fun story that I arrived on, and I was like, all right, we gotta do a panel on this one. In India, an elderly couple is suing their son and daughter-in-law for not producing grandchildren. They say they spent their life savings to provide their son with pilot training in the United States. Furthermore, they also helped him get married. All of this was in the hopes of grandchildren one day. They demand a grandchild within the year or to be paid 50 million rupees, which is about $675,000, in compensation. Is there any validity to this lawsuit? Can parents put any sort of expectations on their child's behavior after investing so much into them? Are parents ever owed anything? Okay, so I'll put this link in the Twitch chat so you guys can take a look at it. It's a really short article to my audience. It's a super short article. Hey, Kaylee, thanks for being around. But I think this is a super interesting question. Spoiler alert, I'm probably gonna have to fight the whole panel on this one, but that's fine. I'm more than prepared to do that. So we'll start with Wick.
So the question is this. When it comes down to it, what we're talking about tonight is not just this specific topic, but the topic about filial responsibility, the duty that children owe, if any, to their parents and to their care. This is limited, however. I think in this specific scenario, no one has the right to force you to have a child or to get married or to do any of these things. Let me ask it this way: if you spend money and time courting someone, you spend a lot of effort, you spend a lot of your resources to make them your spouse or significant other or what have you, and they back out, do they now owe you? Are they now responsible to recompensate you sometimes at some point just because you're disappointed? I think the answer is clearly no. Yes, there is a moral duty that children have to their parents to help for their care when they are older. But having children or even getting married is not one of them. And I think that's pretty clear.
Okay, let's go to Sly Jenks.
Okay. Yeah, so for at least from my end, I tend to lean in agreeing with Wick here, but a few disclaimers possibly there that I could possibly put in there where yes, a child did not ask to be born, but it does change after, at least in my opinion, it does change after they turn 18 and they're considered to be an adult. If at that point they then continue to depend on a parent, depending on where the dependency is, I think the parents might have a point here, but that's going to be like a case-by-case basis. So the concept of survival and being able to make it into the world. If you are, I don't know if they have like a legal case because I'm not a lawyer. However, I could see why I could see why I would lean with the parents in this situation, especially when they are being leaned onto for dependency. So while a child is still a child and they kind of like are under the dependency of a parent, sure, I can understand it. But outside of that, leaning back into that dependency after you're an adult, I think is just something that is going to be a case-by-case basis. And I think the parents might have a point in this case specifically.
Interesting. Oh, Sly. All right, already one-upping Wick by like agreeing with me. So good work there. I love to see it. He's a great addition to this channel. You see that, Wick? Next I go to my man B-More, who literally has had like minutes to come up with an opinion on this one. So
Yeah, but the answer is very simple, right? There's an old Republican mantra. It came out back in 2016 by the great Michael Jordan, and it said, "Fuck them kids," right? I think we need to go full circle with that. If "fuck them kids" is valid, then "fuck them parents" is also valid. It's really that simple, right? I want to break through, right? I'm a black man. I'm already, there's a debuff already acting right here, right now. My parents had plenty of time to operate under less inflation, a better housing market. And I will say my parents did win. My parents did a great job. But if they didn't, I would have to do the opposite of Michael Jordan, and instead of say fuck them kids, I'm gonna have to say fuck them parents.
Isn't Be More great? Like I keep telling you guys, it keeps proving it. Thanks for being more. All right, Corey.
Yeah, I think the parents absolutely have no case. I am all for the right to self-determination. I think it's pretty awful when it seems like parents just have children for the sake of trying to live vicariously through their children, and just set up certain expectations. And then if they don't live up to those expectations, then the child is, in their eyes, very often either a failure or not doing their familial duty. I'm pretty much, to use Wick's language, uh, filial responsibility does not exist, should not be a thing. And I think overall it's pretty toxic, just as we wouldn't treat women as property, treating your children like property. I'm also against that as well.
Thank you. Finally, Katie.
Well, first of all, who says we don't use women as property? Let's not be ridiculous, okay? That's one. Yeah, I'm with Corey. I think people having, I don't think people should have whatever they're giving to their children. They should give without expecting it to be returned. Like, I don't think it's a valid thing to have those types of expectations for your kids. Like, specifically with the case that you brought up, like, there's a lot of stuff with Indian culture that I think we're all too ignorant and, like, not a part of to meaningfully comment on. But generally speaking, in terms of, like, what kids owe their parents, whatever they want to owe back, I don't think parents should give anything that they're not willing to let go without expecting something in return. I don't think it leads to very good or fair parenting. Yeah, it's my general position.
Okay. And my position. I'll be succinct about this. I think there, for this specific case, there is the biggest sticking point is the idea of a pregnancy, right? The idea of saying that I am owed a grandchild. That is in itself a very difficult ask to put on anyone, right? To produce a new life, right, on demand. But
Especially if you're one
beyond,
person.
yeah, I mean, fair enough. But beyond that, I think that to say that parents owe nothing, right? And that kids can only decide like what they want to give back. Really, like, if the amount of investment truly that a parent puts into a child, and Side Jenks tried to beat me to it, like especially after like they've turned to adult, right? To say that they know they owe nothing with like the resources that go into them, right? Especially when like the alternative for that is that person be homeless, for instance. To say that they're owed nothing, I can't go that far.
It's easy to go that far.
Okay, well, then we'll fight about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so when a baby is born, you hold the baby, he's just started crying for the first time, and you say, you know what, even though you can't consent or speak, I'm gonna get you in a nice little verbal agreement. You're gonna pay me back a percentage of what I invested in you. It's so childish. Like, maybe the idea of, well, if you give money to this individual as an adult, then there's some type of verbal agreement, they can consent to it. But here's the thing, you had that child. For the most part, in most cases, that's their choice. If you don't expect anything in return, because if you do, you just shouldn't be having kids.
Yeah, kids
Yeah,
aren't
I
in-
also
I just want to quickly say, like, even just the language you use when you say invest in a child, like, why would you even use that terminology? Like, it's not an investment. Or rather, it's a self-made investment. Just as I wouldn't use the language of I'm not going to invest in my date in the hopes of the payoff. It's not. It shouldn't be transactional.
No, I agree with you. That's the reason why the whole hypothetical was like making a verbal agreement with a newborn. How dumb it sounds.
Love, if it's actual love, in the truest sense of the words, then why would it be tied to all these like puppet strings? And you're turning it into a transaction, which is like you owe me now.
Okay,
I would say that's not love.
How much is owed then? What percent?
I am definitely going to respond to this investment comic because I think there's a lot to dig in there. But let's go to Wick and then Katie.
So leaving that aside, the investment comment, I would disagree with Corey that nothing is owed. I do think that kids have children, I should say, have a responsibility to their families, right? Have a responsibility to their parents, to their health, right? Like if uh, your mother or father or uncle even, and someone you were close to, someone you were raised by, gets into a bad way, and you don't help them when you can, I think it's a bad look. I would judge someone for that, right? I
Is
would
that
judge
should or
them,
must?
right? Should. I'm not speaking legal
Okay.
force. That's why when we talk about this specific situation, taking someone to court, that's crazy. It's
Hmm.
crazy. I don't know about the culture, right? Like it may be a cultural thing, or there may have a legal case. I don't know, but when it comes down to how it looks very out there. Um, at the end of the day, if you give to someone, if you invest in someone that's part of your family, um, yeah, you don't. The quickest ways to lose a friend is to borrow, and the second is to lend. Don't do that, right? Like you're gonna lose your family if you get into those kind of transactional things.
That's exactly why
Yeah.
this person might lose a son because they got into a transactional thing. It was they treated it as a borrow. They treated it as a lend. And look what's happening now. It turned into a lawsuit. That's the reason why when I speak on this, I'm speaking on should it be mandatory? The answer is clearly no, right? Should they? I would help my parents. I would. But guess what? I'm not obligated to. So that means when my parents request help, I'm going to look at everything at a case by case basis, right?
Katie,
I
and then Sly Jinx.
sorry.
Yeah. I think like the adult thing is a bit silly to me, especially if we were talking about generally when someone is an adult and they're on their feet, they're out of the house, they have a job or whatever, and they're capable and stuff, and you want to sign a contractual agreement with your adult child, whatever. But to be like, oh, once a kid hits 18, now they're an adult, and now every penny that the parent spends on them is like needs to be somehow like tallied, and that's something that they owe back. I think it's a bit silly. Like
Hmm.
we all understand that that's not really how anything works. Like a lot of people do, like when they hit 18 they live home. Some do that beforehand, but we also know about like there are also parents who don't prepare you for when you're 18 and you're capable of being an adult, right? So there's also an issue there to just be like, there's a cutoff at 18. Like, if we're not counting the stuff before when you're a child, now that you're an adult, there's some kind of like transactional thing that is happening because you're an adult and it's different now. It's kind of like, well, what does being an adult mean? It's like, it's just like you're crossing the 18 threshold and suddenly what? You're capable, you have a job, you have all the skills that you need. Like that's not really how real life works for most people. So I just think it's a bit like it's unhelpful
I, I,
to think
I,
about it like that.
so I want to jump in. I want to, before we get too far away from like Corey and the rest. Then I'll go to you, Sly. Okay. Um, so you asked Corey. You asked me. Why did I use the term investment? Right. Because it's completely and totally apt. Right. That. This is like the,
I would raise my child, not invest in my child. That's the clarification I would make.
yeah, and still I reject. So
You can.
This is like the subject of marriage, right? How like the concept of marriage has changed, especially in Western arena, right? Where we're marrying for love and not actually as an
Not
investment,
property, not
right?
woman
Not
as
in
property
property,
and transaction.
Yeah.
I agree.
Kenny's on the market, just so you know, right? Good solid investment, right? So, so just
But
put it
children,
out
they're
there,
property.
right? But children, no. But that's what
But
you
they
would
are.
do. No, listen. This is what you would do with children. You would actually invest in them because you actually did need a return on that investment, right?
What
When
the
you
hell
need
is this?
children to, no, don't worry, let me draw it out for you. Like when you need children to work on a farm, right? Like this is how we're going to feed each other, feed ourselves. We have to raise the crops. And it's just one example. We have to raise the crops. I need workers, right? And so I'm going to create those workers. That's how we do it, right? And that's how we keep everyone alive. In fact, I have to make a lot of those kids because a lot of them are not going to survive because we don't have vaccines. So but it's necessary for them to survive, for the outcome of the business being the farm continuing, and the parents being taken care of. Now, relate that to what's happening in the East here, right, in India. And this part is extremely important because, like Katie said, there's a lot of cultural context people are missing, right? For so many of those nations, they don't have social security. Like, parents are left out in the code, right? Like when you're an elderly person, you get no support. So what's gonna happen when you can't work, right? You have to rely on your children. This is why boys are preferred, right? Because it's just they thought they're more likely they'll be able to be successful, right? So in that case, when they and all the points that we have here are just from this article, and what they talked about the going to the flight school. That's after they're when they're adult, right? Going to the flight school and then getting married. There's a massive investment in both of those, especially in India when it comes to marriage, right? A massive investment that happens in both of those. So to say that they're owed nothing, right? That it's not a thing, and that it is not an investment. No, this absolutely is. In their eyes, and to eyes of so many parents, no, this is an investment in my future. So yeah, it's an app.
Here's the beauty of it.
I need to address this point very quickly. Like the very scenario that you outlined is the very reason why there's a huge issue, the huge sex imbalance in China and India, because young girls are pretty much they're not being selected for, or being selected against, or being killed when they're babies, especially in China when there's a one-child policy, and you're just invested in the boy to get you out of your economic conditions. Like everything that you've outlined it's what's fostering this disastrous scenario. So I don't see like why you're advocating for this.
I'm not advocating for anything. Hold on a second. I'm not advocating for anything. I'm simply making the case for the parents. Is that they're owed something, and what you're talking about with the deaths of so many little girls, absolutely, that's the case. But this is the this is the reason why, and this is an investment. That's how people see it, right?
Children are not insured by the FDIC. Okay, it's really not that simple. Okay, it's like if I put money into the S&P 500 or Nasdaq, and guess what? I go in the hole. Maybe it is an investment, and this is an investment you went red on.
Slide then Wick.
Okay, you guys are getting caught into I would say at least just to kind of, I guess, hone it in, because specifically this word investment is being kind of like thrown around as though it's a transaction. Parents can invest in a child more than on monetary senses. They can invest in a child with their values, their disciplines, their plans for the future. They can feed this into a child. Those can be considered investments in the off chance that in the future when they grow up they extend a family line. There's beliefs in family that could happen. Is it assured? No, it's not assured. But in India, it might just be something that these parents might have done with their son, and it's as an expectation for the son to then come back when he's an adult to lean into the parents for them to get him through school, for them to get during the pandemic when apparently he lost his job or something, for them to lean again, for him to lean into his parents again. That the return that they're expecting in some senses is that they would continue some sort of bloodline, and this is like an expectation that they have. I don't know legally if they can make that expectation. It sounds like the son finessed them in some way in kind of using them to survive in some way. They may have some sort of case there, but I don't think that's okay that the kids can like lie to their parents and use them in this way. I just think it's a really shitty thing to do. I don't know if legally they can make that point, but all I'm saying is that like kids can do this shit, and it's not you guys are sort of like advocating that that's fine to do, and I just disagree with it. I think in this case this son should pay something to the parents, because that's an expectation that they have.
We gotta go to Wick, Katie, and then Be More. And in terms of like the legal ramification, we're gonna have to leave that off the table because it's an Indian court. Like no one else has any fucking clue here. So let's leave that part off the table and maybe focus in on like I guess the morality. I'm not sure. But go ahead.
To Sly Jinx, I guess the only point here is the type of reimbursement or the type of promise made, right? Like we're talking about not a monetary not paying them back monetarily. That's not what they were asking for originally, the parents. The parents were asking for a grandchild. And for whatever reason, and the article doesn't make it clear, it's a very short article, the son decided not to, right? He decided, I don't want to do this, right? And when we talk about these things, I think morally, that's part of what consent is. The important part of consent is it can be revoked later. And when we talk about these things like having a child, bringing life into the world, that goes beyond just kind of a monetary transaction here. I think that it's unfair to equate these things. The second point I want to make is to Prime. I understand what you're saying about owing something, right? Owing the children owing the parents something. But where do we draw that line, right? So I understand like parents would have children to work on the farm for survival and things because they had a need have a thriving business to eat, things like that. But where do we draw the line on that? Is it okay for them to demand that their children give up an organ to help them be more healthy? Like if they can donate it, would it be fair for a parent saying, "Hey, I raised you, I invested all this money into you, I gave you a good life. I need a liver, buddy. Time to pay up," right? Do we think that that's a fair thing? I think that we would all kind of balk at that, I would hope. So there's obviously lines here of what we could expect. And I'm just wondering what yours are.
Okay, to answer that question, then we'll go to Katie and Vmar. To answer that question, just like any investment, right? And just like any investment in which a return is expected, right? Sometimes the investor can have a inflated idea as to what the return might be, right? So if you're asking me, should a parent expect an organ back? I'd say probably not. Organs be really fucking expensive. But I don't know. Maybe there's a massive investment enough that you would do that. Like
Medical school,
maybe
not pilot school.
not pilot school. Like, we can just say that. Not pilot school, okay? Right? But yeah, like
What if they bought him a house? Like, what if they bought him a house, set him up in a nice, cush neighborhood, and then 30 years down the road, their ticker starts to give, and they're like,
what
"Okay, buddy, now it's time, son. We raised you. We gave you all this wealth and lavished upon you. Now we want your organs."
what if because of investments that they weren't ever able to like monetary investments that they were able to take advantage of, right? But handed down to their son, guy becomes a multi-millionaire or a billionaire, right? Well, I don't know. Maybe at that point you are owed an organ, right? Like you are living a lavish lifestyle that would be literally impossible for you, especially if you're got no fucking talent. Literally impossible for you if not for the investment of your parents. Maybe you owe them a piece of your liver. Yeah, actually, I can make that case. But Katie, please.
It's good to see you turning into a frog, Prime. It's a nice. This is a good doobie panel for you. I see what's happening. I hope that's what you're doing. Yeah, I think there's like a disconnect because I think, and I might be speaking like out of turn here, but I think me and Corey and B more are more talking about like the moral obligations and like what it means and what type of parent you are, and maybe that there's a certain toxicity at looking and having children like they are investments, like they owe you things, like they're going to owe you things. Maybe the concept of like I remember my ex, for example, really wanted kids because he wanted to be surrounded by family when he died. And I told him that's a horrible reason to have kids. I don't think people should have kids for that reason. Like, because you might have a kid. And I think if you're a good parent, then you have to have a kid knowing that your children might fucking resent your guts and never talk to you again. And that's like the risk that you're willing to have to take if you want to be what I would consider like a good parent. So I just think there's like a slight disconnect between like the discussion that you guys are having and what we're having. So I would just like we'll get on track with that. I just think that's what's happening.
Yeah,
I would say
I just wanna
be more,
briefly-
be
Yeah, go
more,
ahead,
Sly
Bmore.
Jenks, and then Corey.
So, Katie's spot on, but unfortunately, I don't see there's any other way to go about it, right? Because you just can't have your cake and eat it. If you're saying the kid must pay, the kid must pay. This is the debt owed. Then you're speaking legally. Because if you're speaking morally, well, I'm gonna let you know right now. When Michael Jordan came up with the quote "fuck them kids," he was being an asshole. And the beauty of America, at least, is you have the right to be an asshole. So if this is simply going to boil down to, well, this is a moral obligation, and if you don't fulfill it, you're an asshole. Congratulations, that's protected within your rights as an American. So, if you just want to have the moral conversation, I agree. I think you should help your parents, right? Do I believe it should be codified in law? No. And since it cannot be codified in law, it's not a debt owed. It's not. It's simply not. There's no contractual
I don't think I
agreement.
would call someone an asshole though for not
I-
helping their parents.
I mean, the only
was-
reason why they would be called an asshole if the consensus was, I'm not saying it is, but if it was that you have a moral obligation to do this, right?
And-
That's
and
the
my-
only, that's the only point I'm making.
and my prescription wasn't that they have to do this, because I don't see how legally they can make this happen, unless they have receipts or something, or they recorded their conversations, maybe. But my statement was that they should they should be owed something, because
Let me cover that. Yeah.
so the reason I also say this, and why it's also connected to what you guys are talking about, I think that I understand where you guys are coming from with the kids don't the kid doesn't owe him shit. I get that. It's the fact that there, at least the examples that are given in the article, seem to be that this kid leaned into the parents for something, leaned into the parents and got something from them. And one of those things was the payment of his marriage. Now, the meaning of what marriage is to your parent and what they taught that kid when he was growing up, and the expectation of what that is, may involve an expectation of a bloodline being continued. It may involve that. I'm assuming that that's the case, because I've anecdotally I've heard that, but I don't want to argue on the anecdotals, but that's something that I think that's a line of, I see where they're coming from, and in this
Sly.
case, I can see they may have a point.
Check this out, right? I would agree with you, right? First off, right? My parents are going to say that I owe them money. I want everything itemized, okay? I want it itemized. I want to know exactly what I owe and why. For example, if they say you owe me $40 for the Adidas, I'm going to say I didn't want the Adidas. I want the Nike SB Dunks. You didn't get me those. I'm striking that out. Oh,
What if you went to them and asked them for it? What if you went to them and asked for them for it?
Check this. Wait, if I asked for the Dunks and they gave me the Adidas?
No, if you asked for the Dunks and they gave you the Dunks, and and then they asked for their money.
You know what? Then that you can leave. It's itemized, right? That's half the battle, right?
No.
Maybe
They don't have the receipt.
Let me continue.
Maybe they don't have the
Yeah,
receipt.
in this particular case, it's not itemized at all.
It's not itemized, so you would say no?
They can't even. No, it's like you can't even begin to make the claim if it's not itemized, right? At least you have some stake, a possibility. This conversation would be better if they actually had it itemized. But the reason why I'm bringing this up, right? If I do believe, and maybe this is an agreement, me agreeing with you. If a parent says, "Hey, I'll pay for your wedding if you have a grandchild," okay, you pay for the wedding. The couple reneges. They should pay.
Okay.
If the agreement's there.
I think that's probably why they would probably, they're probably leaning towards
the wedding didn't cost $650K.
Okay, but it's the wedding and putting him through school too, because the son couldn't afford that either.
Actually, you don't know how much a wedding might cost for Indian weddings. Like they go on for days. They literally go on for days.
Yeah, I was conceding that, but I was conceding that point.
But still, anyway, so I'll leave that alone. But and I will say one last thing. I got to go to Corey and Katie, right? Is that does anyone under the impression here that these parents didn't make this clear like that they wanted grandchildren, the people that would sue for this, right, who would actually like go to a lawyer, actually take this to fucking court, right? Do you think they were ever shy about their desires for a grandchild, right? Like, I think this was made like crystal clear to them.
What if?
Absolutely. So hold on,
Fine,
let's go to Corey and Katie.
Yeah, just to touch on a few things, hopefully briefly. It's like some of you are kind of like treating children like cattle to be raised for your own expectations. And this bleeds into like if you want to go down the family line, this is one of the reasons why women in some societies are just their value is placed in their ability to bear children.
Yeah.
What if you chose a wife that could not bear children? Right? Like, does that and this is one of the reasons why, and I don't think you understand how toxic this dynamic can get, especially between parent and child when there's these potential expectations, unknown expectations, even if they're known. Does a child have an obligation to their parents if their parents severely abuse them? Like this actually happens, and I know some people, personally, close friends, where like they are severely abused, but there's still this familial expectations, and they are torn between two worlds of like, I have my own life to live, but I have this severe guilt from my family and my parents that I'm not living up to, but yet they severely abused me. Is there familial obligations there? Where does it end? When there's
that's a good
actual
question.
stories of children locked in basements and tortured, almost like cattle, do they have a familial obligation?
We can answer. I think all these questions are answerable. And you say like fuck what was the first thing you said I want to respond to?
Cattle.
Treating kids like cattle.
No, it was after that. But I think
The second
these
thing.
things are actually answerable in terms of what they're owed. Like, yeah, you can say that. Well, first of all, we're talking. The point is, we're trying to talk about them as adults, right? That's where I'm taking this. Is once they're adults and the investment made afterwards. Like what they're owed there. But if their upbringing was shitty, right? Well, then you can also say that the product that you were giving me, being a parent, raising me, right, was subpar, and I owe you less for it. And also that's what
Can I
thing
sue
you
my
said.
parents
You
now?
talked
Still
about
held
Maybe
over
the
their
parents
head.
owe you.
Yeah, thank
yeah.
you. Can I sue my
Mate,
parents
Yeah,
now?
you do.
reparations.
Yes, yes, sue them for their abuse. Actually,
Okay,
yeah,
so-
do that. I'm actually
Because the
for that.
pushback is
So-
always,
so-
I
so
gave
what-
you life. Like I
What's the
didn't kill
percentage,
you.
Brian?
But
what's the percentage?
But in terms of Corey, you asked that. I remember what I was gonna say. You asked about like their like what if the child had chosen a person who couldn't have kids. First of all, the parents chose that the woman, right? In this situation, the parents chose the woman, and what for? To have grandchildren, right?
Oh, so they
so
tested
if
her
they make the
fertility,
wrong
right?
choice, then it's
Oh,
up to
please.
them.
This it
But-
gets worse.
All right, so let's go to Katie and then Wick, and yeah.
Yeah, so again, some of us are very like fixated on this specific like case. I think Indian culture and Indian court systems are a bit too complex for me to like meaningfully comment on. So I'm more interested in like general discussion about this topic because I just like I really don't think we have the nuance for this.
Oh, we
Um,
can do both.
I just think that it's interesting that we're talking about what the kids owe the parents now that they're adults and stuff. The thing is, when you're a parent, and we're all like, we're going off the assumption that you're choosing to have a kid right now. We're not talking about when people are forced into these situations. If you chose to have a kid, then basically what you guys are saying is you're signing up, you're signing a baby up for a contract that they couldn't sign. And you're saying, well, now that they're an adult, it's different. And I'm like, okay, if your kid is an adult, so when I talk to my parents and they support me financially, whenever they choose to give me a sum of money, I'm like, hey, so I'm taking this and what are we going, we have explicit conversations about what the expectations are going to be in terms of the return that they're expecting. But most people don't have those conversations. Parents generally, especially parents like, who treat their children as like investments, and say, I invested this into you, you owe me this, stuff like that. There are a lot of implicit expectations that they have of their adult or not adult children, and I just think it's very Prime. I get that you're like outlining, okay, if I treat my child as an investment, obviously I'd expect something back. And my question is like, is that a good thing though? Should you be a parent if that's how you're going to treat your children? Should we allow you to have children if that's the mindset that you have when you go to have a kid? I don't think you should. That's awful.
Then the human race would be
Oh,
extinct. I'll
you know how I
I,
feel.
I'll I do actually. So hold on, let me go to. I want to answer your question, Katie. Right. So I'm going to go back to that. Don't forget it, and I'm writing it down. My response. But I'll let in Wick and Sly first.
Okay, so I guess let me try to tackle it generally from a couple directions here. So to Katie, right? Like, would you agree that parents have a responsibility or owe something to their children? Do you think they owe
Yeah,
anything to their kids? Yes.
they
And
owe
we
them
could,
a lot.
yeah, we could probably talk about that, but details really don't matter at this point. So I think that given that, I do think kids owe something to their parents, assuming, again, this assumes that the parents did right by them, right? Whatever that might mean. Um, at the very
Why?
least, children should take care of their parents if they can, when they're sick, when they're hurt, when they're suffering, etc. I think that there's a duty there. I
Okay, and
do.
if they don't,
And
if they don't,
if they don't, that's immoral. I don't think it should be forced. I'm with you, Be More, that this isn't a contractual thing. I'm speaking morally here. I'm speaking from a moral perspective. So I think that there is something to be said about just helping people in need. And I think you have a special duty to those who have helped you before, right? I think that if they have helped provide for you and then you turn them away when they are in need, I think that that is a moral failing. That's the first thing I want to say. The
Children
second
don't
thing,
ask to be born, though. There's
that's
like a key
okay.
distinction
Yeah,
there.
I
That's
was gonna
fine.
respond to that
But
in a
even
way.
if I'm sick and I can't ask for anything because I'm so sick, feverish, etc., and someone helps me, I'm going to feel indebted to them, and rightfully so, right? Because they helped me when I needed help, when I could not help myself, even if I did not ask for that help and indeed could not ask for that help. I do feel like I owe them a debt. And that's me. That's my morals, right? And I would feel weird if I had the means and this person who saved my life, who provided for me when I could not provide for myself, needed something and I could give them, and I said, "Nah, fuck you." That would be a terrible
That's
thing.
because you're treating parental and like child relationship like you treat other relationships. We think, well, other relationships are reciprocal. You know, you give and you get back, and that's how that goes. And it's kind of like, well, the thing with parents and children is that it's not that simple. There's someone who entered into this without their consent or their ability, and now they're tied to that parent, however that parent might have been. And so it's like to just say that there's this expectation or this like moral like obligation
Again,
that you have when you didn't sign into this
it
relationship.
doesn't matter if someone,
It matters a lot.
if your parents have provided for you, if they haven't mistreated you, if they've given you everything they could,
That's
and
the
then
bare
later in
minimum, by the
life,
way.
and then
They
later
haven't
in
abused you.
yeah, sure.
Kudos.
Let's set that aside. Let's say they've been good parents, right? Say they've done everything they could, right? Everything reasonably expected. They've given you education, housing, etc. And then later in life, they're sick. They cannot care for themselves. They need your help. And you say, and they said, "Well, I didn't agree to be born." That would you? Wow, that would be an asshole thing to do. But I do want to ask Prime my second point here because I think that it's odd that we're looking this from just a parent perspective in a general case, I should say. And let me explain. So if I were to marry someone and the understanding, the explicit understanding is like, hey, I want to have a kid with you, right? Like, so we're gonna get married and we're going to have kids. We get married. I pay for the wedding. I pay for all the things. And then a year, 2 years into the marriage, and we're like, okay, let's start having kids. And then she's like, you know what? I don't think I'm ready for kids, right? Should they be expected to pay me back because they've decided that they no longer want kids? I don't think so. I don't think that that's something that should be expected from that. So I don't see the difference here when it's the parents, right? When the
I
parents who are paid for the wedding, who paid for all these things, and then the kid decides later on, no, I don't want kids for whatever reason. We don't know why, right? I just, yeah, that's my own.
It's just hilarious how the obligation is put on a man to get a woman to have his kid. This is just so freaking dumb. It's so weird. It's just like you would think that you would have to pay the woman. Like what is this?
So hold on, we'll go to slide jinx. I think I have a bunch of ways that I can do this, right? But I want to answer this question quickly. And Katie, I haven't forgotten yours. I want to let Slide go first. I'm gonna get back to Katie's thing, okay? But in fact, you know what? I'll wait. I'll let Slide go first. Then I'll answer Wick and Katie's question, and then I'll go to Corey, right?
Okay, I was gonna say that, like, to me, it just feels as though there's this sense of there's this sense of entitlement, in the sense that because you did not ask to be born, you are now you now have parents who have to take care of you when you cannot take care of yourself, beyond even when you become an adult. And it is automatic because you did not ask to be born. This is something that they are obligated to continue to do, because that's the bare minimum that they can do. And I don't think that is correct. And I think that's the sentiment that I'm getting from Corey, at least.
I mean, it is correct, and you're failing to demonstrate how it isn't correct. Like, you, against this person's free will, brought them here.
If you are an adult, once you the concept of consent, yes, you did not consent to be born, but once you become an adult and you're able to consent, you can cut that agreement. You can.
Yeah. But
there are a lot of people who leave
Guess
their
what?
parents
but
and never
that's
talk
the
to them
point.
again.
The whole point is once you're 18, you can form a legally binding contract. If you want this to be the way, then force parents to form contracts with their 18-year-olds. The government does it for federal student loan debt, and I would say, first off, this is dumb. This is straight up dumb. Because
No, it's cultural. No, socially,
let me explain to you why
that's
it's
the
dumb.
case.
It's dumb because it seems like everybody wants to have the position where we don't want to make it mandatory, though. We don't want to make it law. We're just talking out of morals. Guess what? People are going to have their own morality, and you're just going to have to deal with the same exact thing I said before. No one's yet to come up with a counter. People are going to be assholes, because being an asshole is protected in America.
Yeah,
But
in
addition
to being an asshole, right?
Okay,
Still is
congratulations.
calling it out.
Wave
And
your finger. That's like the lip thing to do. Yeah.
in addition
morality.
in addition to people having their own morality, other people are going to, when they're struggling, give up their I guess their strong stance on their morality and lean into their parents' morality again, just to get some money to make it through school, or lean back into their morality, but just to make sure that they get their wedding paid for. Like, that's something that, like, I think that's a wrong that was done against the parents. That's all I'm saying here. Those two things, that's a wrong that was done against the parents.
This is not a secured investment. Sometimes you have to go in the red. Sorry.
It's not secured. Yeah. It's sometimes you have to go into the red. I get that, but it's still a wrong that was done to the parents.
Stocks don't always go up.
Can I?
Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I assume that you believe and agree that parents have responsibility towards their children when they're children, when they're not adults, right? Because you're the one making the distinction, right?
Yes.
So do you believe that parents no longer have those responsibilities once the kid is a quote unquote adult, once they hit 18? Because I believe that if you choose to have a child, then your obligation as a parent is for life. It doesn't end when you're an adult. And when I'm saying for life, I don't mean you have to pay every expense that your kid wants. I just think there are certain moral and ethical obligations that parents have to their children that don't just end when they're 18. Obviously, if a parent doesn't have the money to give, or even if they don't want to give the money after the kid is an adult, then that's fine, right? But it sounds like you think that once a kid is an adult, it's kind of like go your own way unless you want to play it by my rules kind of thing.
No, it's completely, like, I'm saying that once a kid turns 18, they have the option. Before they turn 18, they don't have that option. So I understand socially the parents are going to, in general, once you give birth to a child, the child is going to exist into the world beyond after they're an adult. Hopefully they live a long life. Yes, you do look out for your child, but that relationship with your child is no longer one where they don't have a choice or a say in the decisions that they're making in their life. To when they become an adult where they do have a say. And what I'm trying to say here is that it just seems as though the son, when he did have a say as an adult, leaned into the parents' values, leaned into the parents' money to proceed in life when they couldn't do it on their own as an adult, for the degree that they got, for the marriage that they went through. I'm saying that this comes with expectations. This comes with values that this child this son probably knew ever since he was a kid. To expect the parents not to look at it and say, what the fuck is this? Like, what's going on? You don't want to have a son anymore. To expect that, and not to expect them to ask. Obviously, the relationship has broken down because now the parents are basically putting it down to like a value of 600, however amount of money. That's the value of their communication that they've basically broken it down to. But that's why I say in this case specifically, if it's broken down this much, then I think they do have a case. But outside of that, normally in at least even in a general sense, when we're talking about this conversation, we would never get here, right? They would either say, okay, well, forget you, we're cutting you off from here and on,
That's the way it
or
should be.
Well, it's
Yeah.
you know,
my
things like that.
judgment.
Yeah.
That's power of the purse, right? Like just like if I tell my kid, hey, I will pay your tuition if you go to law school, and then the kid says sure, so then I give him $100,000. I'm a fucking idiot. What I should be doing is receiving the bills directly from the school, proving that they're in law school, and making the tuition payments myself. Why? So you maintain power of purse and you're able to cut your kids off effectively. That this person did, it seems like they didn't really do that, right? Well, in my opinion, the power parents have is the power of the purse. You can cut off your kids anytime you want, right? But you don't just get to recall money.
Let's go. So, Kay, did he answer your question? I got to go to Corey.
I don't
Yeah,
know if I
kinda.
did.
I mean, I have more questions, but it's fine. You can go.
Okay. Let's go
We'll
to
get
Corey.
to
Then
it.
I'm gonna answer the questions that were posed to me previously.
Yeah, so I think there's a larger conversation to be had, in my opinion, because like it seems like just about everyone is viewing it as transactional. Um, and I think even Wick brought up of like, if you're not a bad parent and you've provided your child with an education, and you've not terribly abused them, so kudos to you, and therefore now your child owes you. But what does it say about you as a parent if, let's say, that child doesn't actually feel any sort of obligation towards you? As in, I would be able to say, if I had a child, I raised them, and I raised them the way that I would want to raise them, and then somewhere down the line, I'm old and I'm in need, and my child rejects me and doesn't want to help me, I would have no problem saying I probably failed as a parent, as in I don't actually know how to cultivate a loving relationship where I'm just viewing it as transactional, as an investment. Like, what other relationship do you think is healthy that you would view transactional? I'm pretty sure you wouldn't transfer this to a romantic partner. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't. I'm assuming you wouldn't transfer this to a friendship. Where again, what does it say about the relationship if a
Whoa,
child that doesn't
wait a
actually
second.
feel like they want to help their parents?
Healthy
Like
for a
if
sex
you're in
worker.
a friendship and you're always doing everything for this friend, you're always giving them all your time, all your attention, you always pay for everything, and they don't do shit for you,
You're a simp.
that's an issue,
Yeah,
right?
I'm
Like
not
that's a
saying
fucking issue,
one-sided.
and you should
Sure,
probably
50
look into
50.
it.
No, 50. But what would it say if I have absolutely no feelings of, let's say, affection towards my friends and want to help them if they actually need it, without getting into the weeds of what help actually means?
So all I'm trying to say here, and like when we look at these things, is where do our duties lie? And when it comes to filial duty, if I do believe family members have a duty to other family members because they've supported each other, ideally,
You
right?
think
Now,
every family is supportive?
no, I do not. that's a failure of their filial duty, right? There's a failure of their family duties, right? It's very possible parents fail their kids. Parents fail their kids all the time. And I think that, yes, if you are failed by your parents, I think there's nothing wrong with when they come to you for need and you
Well,
turning them away. I don't think
that's the
that's a
common
moral
source,
wrong.
like, of conflict, of, like, again, I personally know some friends of mine that have been very heavily abused, and they push back, and the argument that they receive from their parents is, well, I gave you life, so you should be grateful no matter what.
That's a
You're
stupid argument.
alive.
That's not the
Well,
argument I'm making.
well,
But it's
exactly.
not
I don't
just
think
about abuse. Like, this is the problem. Like, parents can fail their children in like a lot of ways. We're talking about like you invest money into your child, but you can also be like a shitty parent or not a parent that like supplied your kids' needs and still giving them education and a home and food and all the things that society would say, "Oh, you were a good enough parent. You were owed something by your kid." But and you could have failed them on an emotional level. Like, we don't judge this as a society. This isn't measurable. Like, it's really when
We
you say
absolutely do, though, judge this at a societal
we're
level,
bad at it
right?
is what I mean. I don't think I can't assess your childhood and know if your parents were actually good parents. Whether it, like you say, oh, they gave me there's a roof over my head and I got education and like I'm doing well for myself. I don't know if your parents loved you enough. I don't know if Corey's parents love them enough, or what is loving at your child enough is. And every kid has different needs, right? You can fail your children in myriad in a variety of ways. So when you just say like, oh, if you were a good parent, surely you're owed something by your kid. And it's like, I'd argue every parent fails their kid at some point with
Certainly.
something. And
I
depending
agree
on
with
what
that.
that thing
I
is,
I will
I
agree
don't
with
think you're
you.
owed
I
anything.
will agree with you that I think that everyone fails everyone at some point. Like no one's perfect, right? Like and I don't think expecting perfection is wise. I think that's kind of a toxic expectation to have of people actually to expect them to be perfect in every single scenario or else oh nope, yeah, you failed me and now we're done. Now we're cutting you off. I think that's a very toxic thing. But that's another point entirely. But when it comes to the duties we have towards each other. Again, taking it outside of the family issue. If someone helps me and saves my life, if they give me CPR when I need it, if they take care of me when I'm sick, if they give me the Heimlich maneuver, and I can't consent to it.
But
I'm
you can't
choking. I
take it
literally
outside
can't
of the
give them
family
consent,
issue.
right? And they save me, and then they have an issue, and I can help, and I choose not to because fuck them. That's an issue. That's a
Okay, my
societal failing.
argument is
That's
that
a
the
failure
duties
of the person that's
my
denying that.
argument is that the duties that parents have to their children are always greater and will always be, and when especially when the kid is not an adult, they are much greater. And as an adult, they are still greater than the kid would ever owe their parents. I don't think like I can't take this outside of like the family issue because there's no other relationship for human beings that I would make these arguments about. Like there's just a certain type of like contract that is being signed when you have a kid that kind of you're more on the hook than the kid. I don't
What
think
No,
what
no,
if
like
again, if
you're
you're
already
having
saying this
kids,
isn't a contract. This isn't a contract at all. Like
if
and
you're
again, I don't sign any
entering, if you're
contract.
having a kid, if you're having a kid and you're treating it as an investment and you're going to say, if I'm a good enough parent, when I'm 50 or 60 or 70 or 80, this kid owes me something, then
But
you are making this contract.
You're
okay, so
acting
hold
you're
on.
acting
I gotta respond because I've got a whole bunch of stuff I didn't get a chance to respond to. And I'll start with you, Katie, because this jumps off your previous point. You're talking about like well, as a one, I'd say that this situation that brought up by these specific Indian parents isn't a prescription for wider society that's being made, right? It's simply stating that there is that if someone wanted to take this option of like calling in the favors, right, that they could, right, but not that not every parent should or anything like that, or that's how like these relationships should be constructed. No, just raise your kids however, whatever. I prefer that, and I'll bite the bullet here, I prefer that parents didn't do this, right? If Corey wants to say like, is this a healthy way of doing things, I'll bite the bullet and say, oh, sure, maybe not. But back to you, Katie, right? This idea that kids aren't an investment is new to human society, right? It's brand new.
Sure.
That okay, so we agree. So it's brand new, and that humanity has survived on this mindset. Like kids have grown up, right, with this level of expectations on them, and felt loved, and felt like this wasn't an overburdensome ask of them, right? And to say that like, yeah, like it's weird that you would, as a 50 or 60 or 70-year-old, that you would ask your kid for anything, right? I don't think that's weird at all. Again, for these societies where like parents will end up on the streets otherwise, right? To say that like I paid for your education, right? Like the reason why you are successful now, right? The reason why you are making money, the reason why your family is now secure is because of the investment that I put into you, right? Again, after they were adults. Then like that seems odd to me. That seems odd that like as a parent, then all of a sudden, and I think Sly was getting to it, right? That this relationship is somehow so outside of the ordinary, right? That economics plays no role into it at all. It actually is a significant investment. If we take on face value for these particular parents, these Indian parents, right? Is that they spent their life savings, right? I spend my life savings on you, random person, right? To say that I'm owed nothing, we would never say that, right?
Not
How
a
much are
random
they
person.
owed?
And in this situation, like that kid, and if that kid didn't want any of it, they all could also refuse, right? It's a two-way street. That kid could refuse, saying like, "Oh, I don't like. I know the strings you're attaching to this, right? Because those parents, there's no way anyone can believe those parents weren't shy about like their expectations for their child. They could say, "Hey, I actually don't want to fulfill that, and so I'm not going to
The
give this
kid,
money."
the kid can say that.
Yeah, I mean, he's over 18. Like
So
if you
the
wants
kid,
to,
the kid has the mental development
no,
necessary to like know about the
Sorry,
contracts.
by kid, I just mean the child,
Okay,
their
this make it.
child,
That's
their
not.
adult
Oh, okay. So
child.
money. So you're talking. Yeah. So you're talking
Their,
about money you spent once they're an adult, right?
yes, yeah, indeed.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So nothing's owed from childhood. I agree.
Yeah, that's the point I've been trying to make. I've been trying to focus on adulthood, right? And yeah,
Same.
yeah. So to say that like
But
at
kids
that
don't
point,
reach adulthood out of nothing. So there's
But
like a lot of investments that go in the childhood that would result in whatever adult you end up being. So we can't just separate it.
no,
Doesn't
And
it's,
no,
who
it,
do
of
we
course we can.
who do we owe that to?
No,
no,
you
Who
Of course we
does
can't.
this
can.
kid owe it to?
Oh,
it seems like the conversation shifted then, whereas we're not asking for kids to pay back anything
No.
spent from the ages of 0 to 18.
it's
So now
never.
you're talking about 18 plus. Okay.
We,
And if that's the
we
case,
were
right?
always talking about that.
I don't know if that's
Yes.
always.
I was
We were always
always
talking.
I clearly
talking about that.
stated that. Yeah.
We said that
Even
multiple
They
times.
were.
Even then, power of purse, right? Don't give your kids everything, and then get mad when they run off.
So okay,
Make the payments.
Wick, you asked. I'm not sure if I finished answering Katie, but I can go back to it later on if I missed anything. But Wick, you asked like, are you owed money for a wedding if they did not deliver a product, right? Like you paid for a wedding, and you didn't deliver on a service, right? Then
Sure,
yeah,
great way to
Product.
put it,
The
but
kid
sure.
is-
This
Yeah,
is such a
yeah.
weird way of phrasing this.
Yeah,
This is
but-
such a weird way of phrasing this.
yeah, but like I feel like the fact that you guys are so uncomfortable with that, like it distracts from the core of the message, right? Like this is simply an easy way of doing this. So yes, like there was a promise made, right? Like, hey, I'm in your scenario, explicitly so, right? So no implications, explicitly so, saying I'm going to do this for you, but I want a grandchild, right? And not through
Or a
like the
child
fault
in
of
this case, right? Like because it's a man and wife. So
man and wife. Sorry, what am I missing?
so the question I ask, would it be different? Like because again, the topic is the parents said we're going to do all this for you, pay for your wedding, pay for your thing, and we want a grandchild. I asked, would it be different if I, a husband, asked
Ah,
someone I married, say, "Hey, I will marry you. This is my expectation. So I will provide for us, right? I will be the man of the house and work, and say 2 years in, like she consents to it. She honestly wants to do it, right? Let's assume the intent is there. But then 2 years into it, she changes her mind. Things happen, right? Circumstances change. She realizes I'm not ready. Would she owe me?
Yeah, I'd say yes.
Wow.
I
okay.
would say yes. No, this was explicit, right? As to
Yes,
the
explicit.
point of relationship, right? So explicitly say, this is what I'm looking for. I am not marrying you out of just love, right? This is not what this relationship is about. I want to produce a child. Maybe this is like an older gentleman, right, with a younger woman, and it's like I've always wanted a kid, and like we will get together. You'll have access to my funds, right? You'll access to my to the lifestyle that I'm living. Let's say that I'm rich. I'm not sub channel. But you'll have access to all of that, right? On the basis that you provide me with a child. If to simply renege on that deal afterwards, I think that is problematic. Now, if she can't, I think it's different if she actually cannot, right?
Sure,
So
sure, but we're assuming she can. We're assuming in this
okay, so
scenario
we're
that she
assuming
can,
all
there's
that.
no medical
Then
issue.
absolutely, I'm sorry, but like you're saying, like I'm not ready. Well,
See,
like-
that's where we disagree, because I think that when it comes to certain things such as having a child, I think that's not something that
but she doesn't
people
have.
should
But
be
here's the thing.
beholden to by a contract.
No. Well, okay. Well, I guess I disagree with that. But like, I the contract is two options, right? So I want to make that clear. The contract is, or the way it's out of the contract is two ways. One is providing the service that was requested, having the baby, right? Two is by paying it back, which is what these parents are asking for as well, right? It's not that I like you demand a baby or imprisonment or something like that, right? Like we take away your freedom. No, it's like give this baby or pay us back. Like we made this investment for this specific reason. You did not do that, right? And that's okay. But I'm still out. I'm still asked out because I wanted something.
So here's the question then.
You got to show the receipts though. Then
So Wick,
They
right?
can.
paper trail.
They can.
Wick, at
actually.
this point, right? You and Prime are not in the same camp, right? Because Prime, you're pretty much saying it should be mandatory, right? Because
He was. Okay. So you're asking
like,
if we were talking about
so you're-
legally or
yeah,
morally.
you're saying at this point in time now, like let's say the marriage, they entered a verbal contract, they should be legally obligated to pay the parent back. Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, they've entered
Okay,
into a
then let me
verbal
cover that.
contract. Yeah. So
Okay, cool. Verbal contracts are barely admissible in court. So just like if you're gonna treat your kids like a business partner, same way I would treat Wick, same way I would treat you, Prime. If you want me or I want you to do a job for me, I'm going to make sure it's explicitly stated in contract. I want it notarized and sent to my attorney for review. And as soon as the ink is dry, then we can go ahead and press with our agreement. If we're going to be treating kids, or as in, adult children, like our children, as business ventures, then I would like to see everybody hire contract attorneys for this.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
not.
You can get that
it's-
if you want to view it as transactional. That I have
Absolutely.
no problem with that.
Like,
Just put it on
'cause
paper.
Yeah, if
Show
I-
the receipt.
if I'm gonna
but-
pay Wick for a job, I expect to get it down on paper with his signature, so I can hold him to it. Solution.
But literally, this kid brought two expectations, two transactions that were needed: the payment of his education
Show me
and
where-
the
show
payment
me on
of
the contract.
and the
Show-
payment.
Yeah, exactly.
If it's
The
not on
receipts,
paper,
man.
it doesn't
The
count.
Receipts.
We
Show me
we
the
still
contract.
don't know where the direction where
Do you own a
we
house
still don't know
without a
the direction of
contract?
where this gonna we still don't know where this legal lawsuit is going to go. Obviously, the fact that they're willing to take it there,
I'm
they
talking
must
about the
have
specific case
some.
anymore. I'm talking about
Yeah, okay,
Prime's
in
situation.
general.
I am talking generally now, right? Generally,
Okay.
if you're gonna treat your kids as a business venture,
Oh.
right? Do you think that Elon Musk is gonna try to buy Twitter without a contract?
I'm
It's the
fine with
thing.
that.
Everything is
Look, I'm already fine
contracts.
with that. Like,
And
I will-
that would be fine.
if that's what you're
Okay,
talking
good.
about, right? Then if we're not talking about these specific parents, which I think they could actually probably provide receipts, but I'd
not a
be
legally binding
definitely willing to
contract.
bet
Oh,
on
I
that,
get it.
right?
This
But
is the
the
reason
point
why
is, but the
Katie
point is,
brings
like,
up a good
if you're
point
saying
with,
that, if you're
Indian
saying,
law, it makes it
if
harder.
I know, but whatever, that doesn't matter. So like the point is that I'm with you, all right? Like to make any contract more solid, you should actually write it out and make it explicit for all parties, right? But we actually do allow verbal contracts, right? We actually do make that admissible one way or the other. But the point is that like
Not for this type of contract. It's not a legal
hold on,
contract.
hold on. I'm saying whether this should be legal, not that it is legal now, right?
Yeah, I
So
said
we can
should
argue
as well.
about like the American legal system at this point. I'm saying that like it's not unreasonable if we had such a system in place, because there's a specific individual making an economic decision, right, to the benefit of someone else, to say that that person, the investor, in this case the parents, are owed nothing, right? That you can just walk away from that investment, when they are asking for something back very explicitly. So, I don't know. That seems pretty. It seems odd, that parents' money become free money, when parents still have to break their backs and work and sweat. I don't know what these people are doing, but like they break their backs, they work and they sweat, to put their kids through college or whatever, right? Their time is valuable, right? They could have put that money into anywhere else. And to say that for some reason this money, no, this is free money, right? That seems odd. I don't know how you guys can say that.
That was their choice, though. That they
My
like
It was his choice to take the money too, right?
yeah.
It was his
but-
choice to ask.
Yeah,
It
again,
was his
unless it was
choice to take
explicitly
it.
like we're going back to the conversation, unless like it's explicitly put down on paper, like this is what we're agreeing to if you're giving me this money for this.
You don't
thing.
need to do that.
You
You don't
do.
need to do that. That's not because
You
you're
do.
saying that's how not
It's a bit. It's an
society.
investment.
Society.
You said it's investment.
Look. I agree that you should, but whatever. But the point is that like still, that's not how people operate. People do operate under verbal contracts all the time. You
Doesn't
operate on
negate-
verbal
doesn't negate
contracts.
the
Everyone
point.
does.
No,
But,
not for actual investments like
No,
this.
no,
This
no,
is a
no.
very
You don't
serious
have to
investment.
like. I wish Pisco was here. Because I know this, that for verbal contracts, as long as the expectation is clear and both parties understand that, like you can enter in a verbal contract that way.
The
right?
reason why
But-
it would be
but the-
nice if Pisco is here, and I'll make sure it's on the record, this particular verbal contract would not be lawful. That's the
I'm
reason why
saying
you
it
would have to
oh my God,
change
I'm
the
saying
law.
it should.
to
I'm sorry,
allow-
you're missing out. You're
Yeah.
missing out. I'm saying it should be, right? I'm asking for arguments from you why it shouldn't be. Not that it is, or that it ought. Well, not that it is. Whether it ought to be. Okay.
because my particular issue with this is the specific type of transaction, right? Like I know everyone's making fun of us using the word transaction, but we're going to use it because it helps communicate, and that's what words do. But holding someone liable if they don't have a child, right? And that's the thing. Like bringing new life into the world, I think that's a thing that is different than simply a monetary obligation. It's different than a work obligation. It is something that, for the sake of the child, especially, if a parent does not feel ready to have a child, they should not be put pressure to bring life into the world that way. I just think that's a
That's a
separate
good
thing.
point.
What
That's
if
a
I
good point.
what if I
don't
pay
want
you
to
to
put
do
that
so?
perverse incentive? Yeah.
No, okay, let's try this another way. All right. Surrogate mothers. I am paying you to bring life into the world.
Not to
I-
raise it.
What? No.
Surrogate mothers
ignoring
don't
it.
raise
That's
the
not, I
kids.
didn't say that. I didn't say that. But I am paying you to bring life into the world, right? And I am paying you for a service. Am I owed that service once I pay you? And this is actually a question. This is a larger question that here in the States we're still working out. I'm curious if the other countries have actually like figured this out as to what exactly is owed to a surrogate mother because of this, because it gets icky for people to ask for this. But look, we've gone to a very explicit contract. You guys are asking for explicit contract, an explicit contract saying that you're going to use your body for this, to deliver this child, right? Either using your own eggs or using someone else's eggs. You're going to deliver this baby, okay? What is owed there? An explicit contract.
Yeah, well, so I'm not 100% sure exactly what, like, if you're pretty much asking the question of like, what do we do with rented incubator space? Then, like, I'm pretty sure there's a paper trail associated with that, but also built in the contract. I'm sure there's like a way, like, I don't think you can enforce it. Same thing with like I don't know for sure. But
You,
uh,
you
when it
yelled
comes
at
to
me for investment, and you called a
Rented
woman a rented
incubator
incubator.
space?
yeah, because
Whoa!
because I'm in this and
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
adapt to this
yeah.
environment.
Well, surrogacy
Uh,
is a rented incubator, and it's the reason why
Katie,
Uh,
Katie,
people are
you're
paid
missing out on
by
a
the
business
milestone.
opportunity right
So
now, right?
This-
Like
but I
you've got
think
this
this
investment,
this
right?
is this is
You
what I
got
was trying to get away
you
from.
got this product here, right? That is not being utilized, not being leveraged, Katie, right? So like rent that space as soon as you
You
can.
know how I feel about women being incubators.
Let me
You
just
know
be
my
very clear though on
position.
the difference. The difference
but
between
like
the
I just want to
surrogate
finish
Oh
my
mother
yeah,
and
hey,
point
Corey, finish your
quickly.
point.
Like I think this like to maybe use a somewhat analogous example. Like I think this happens with adoption in terms of like whatever someone's giving birth to a child and there's a family ready to adopt it, but I think there's still the option of like I don't know exactly the legality behind it, but I don't think it's like concrete that the person giving birth to the child and they've agreed to put it up for adoption that they must now like I don't think that's legally binding like in concrete. I don't think.
Which part? Sorry, which part don't you think is binding?
Where if there's an agreement made beforehand of like this child that's about to be born is going to be adopted into this family, I think there's the option for that for them to back out of that contract.
Okay,
I
so
don't
that's
think
something
that-
different. That's not what I asked though. Right?
surrogates get paid for miscarriage, by the
I
way.
just-
So the same thing. I think the same thing holds true in terms of like surrogacy of like you can put it down on paper, that's fine, but you can't enforce that rented incubator space.
But you can't enforce anything. Like, it's the same as any other service, right? Like if you demand a wedding cake from me and I don't provide that wedding cake, okay, you can't like force me. Like the police won't come like draw guns on me and force me to bake that cake, right? Instead, what are you owed? You owed your fucking money back. So same
Yeah,
situation.
that would be built
This
into
is
the
not
contract.
just a heads
Okay,
up.
great.
Surrogacy
So
doesn't
then
wo-
this all works.
I just
Everything
need to
I'm
be
saying
clear
works.
that surrogacy just doesn't work like this. You don't pay for the child. You pay for the woman to go through specific milestones. So you will pay payments throughout the process. And even if there isn't a baby at the end, you do not get the money back.
the difference
Just
between
making sure that's a,
the
Bro,
difference between a surrogate mother
we
and
need to know
what the
this.
situation we're talking about here, where a parent is trying to legally force their child to have a child, is that the expectation of the child being raised by their children. That is a burden far above and beyond simply giving birth, right? There is burdens and debts owed to children because, as Katie said, parents do, and I agree with this. Parents do owe a debt to their kids. They do have a responsibility that goes beyond just a financial responsibility, I'd feel, to their children, right? And so that's not the same thing that a surrogate mother would owe, right? The surrogate mother just owes the period from birth, conception to birth. That's it.
Okay, so I had missed that point previously, on what you were trying to say. And Beemore's point is well taken, and like how surrogacy works. You're talking about like, well, what happens afterwards, right? So that's an 18-year. I think that's probably your best argument right there. Is the raising, right? Because it'd be one thing if it's just the baby, but then raising the child afterwards, like that's a massive investment on the parents, right? And not so much the grandparents, right? Like, so I'm taking on an 18-year burden myself. So maybe for the specific ask, that might be too much, right? Like the cost of the school, right, and the wedding don't equal to this, right? So we could say that doesn't work. Like I said, like in terms of organs, it doesn't work. So I hear you on
Can
that
I
one.
ask you a question?
Ask me many
So-
questions, Katie.
If let's say that the parents ask for that guy to have a grandchild, right, for them, and then the grandchild ends up having a huge disability, do the parents then owe their son money because
Or
they
it's a
put
girl.
him like at a minus? Is that how that works?
No.
Why not?
Well, hold on. Like what? I'd be fascinated to see if any parent like really thinks about enough about that, right? So I'm curious if they would think far enough ahead to actually say, oh, what if my child is disabled? No, people don't operate that way, right?
Yeah.
People don't like
No, but
consider
I'm
those
asking because
possibilities.
you're doing
Yeah.
calculations. You're like, okay,
Yeah.
so the school and the marriage are probably not worth 18 years of like raising a child. So if we're just doing like financial calculations, we
Mhm.
can just like have the child and then see who's in debt to who in terms of like money. We just
Oh,
like run the 18 years
oh,
and
I
then like
see.
whoever owes who, you know?
And
Oh,
not to
I see.
mention the emotional labor of having to raise a kid like Wick. Oh my God, that would be terrible, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I agree with that.
For a kid like Wick, and they're in a wheelchair, they're quadriplegic.
Look,
Oh,
Now who
I'm
owes who?
okay.
I'm
wait.
willing to bite the bullet
Wait,
that
which-
this specific ask, and I was like from the start I was willing to give this up, right? And this specific ask might be too much. But I talking because like you, Katie, you want to talk in generalities, right, about the subject matter. In generalities, I
It's not
think that
working.
no. But we'll do that, and we have plenty of time to focus in on that, right? If we're talking about generalities, moving away from pregnancy, right? I could say that this isn't worth it for the investment. I'm convinced. All right, but are the parents not owed anything? And that's the point that you were trying to make, Katie, right? That this is something that as a parent you should be freely giving to your kids, right? And I think that's how it should be, right? But I don't think
Forever
it's
as well.
unreasonable. Yeah, and then forever, and also too forever, right?
So I didn't
think
say
I don't
give
think-
freely. I'm saying whatever you're giving, you should not expect back. Whatever you're giving needs to be like
Were you
no
That's
giving for
strings
an
free.
adult?
attached.
That's
Yeah, I don't-
that's free. No expectations. You're
I disagree. I disagree that you
Again,
can't do that.
I
you
think
should.
there's
Forever.
like a huge
Clarifying
issue.
question.
Hmm?
Do you think it should be tied to like can they provide a grandson specifically? Would you tie it to that?
No.
'Cause, like,
We're
you-
moving
you-
away from that. We're moving away from
Okay,
providing.
fine.
Yeah. Just in general, right? So I've made an investment in their college, right? In their college. Like am I owed nothing for that? Like you couldn't do it. Like unfortunately, I live in the States, so like that's the thing that the parents have to do. So if that's the case, and it's like life savings can be gone, right, from a parent for doing that, okay? Is that parent owed nothing from an 18-year-old who wanted to get that education, right? They could have gone. They had other choices. They could have worked it off, right? It would have been very difficult, but they could have worked it off, or they could have gone down another career path, maybe waited until they were more stable, and then invest in their own college education. They didn't take those
military
options.
pays for your college.
Military pays for your college, right? Plenty of options to do it, but they took my money. So am I owed nothing?
Well,
Why
when the
did they
military paid
take
for
your
my
money?
education, they took your money, Prime.
Why did they take your money, Prime? What's the difference between you and the army and like a bank as the parent?
Because this is a low interest loan, right? The lowest interest loan
That's why.
they can get their hand. No,
Just
I'm
the price
actually
of a
saying,
child.
I'm yeah, but I'm working off of your logic here, right? This is the lowest interest loan, right? So you could say it's 0% interest that you can just pay me back exactly that, or maybe not at all, right? Because
0%
for
interest.
Even
because-
the military only requires 4 years, not 18. It's
It-
not the lowest
No,
interest.
no,
It's like
no,
the
no,
fucking
it-
highest thing you can
no,
think
it-
of.
it could be a
Not
gift.
true. GI Bill takes 3 years of service.
Sorry, 3 years then.
Uh,
Not
To be
4.
clear here.
It can be a gift, Katie, right? Because like that's their option, or it could be a low interest loan of 0%. So that's why they would take that money rather than from the bank.
The argument that I'm making is that when we just make a weird separation between when a child is an adult, when a child is a child and when a child is an adult, that's not really how raising a child works. So there's a relationship, there are emotions involved, there are expectations, there's 18 of life hopefully spent to 18 years of life hopefully spent together. So it's like the reason why they're taking your money is not just because you have the lowest interest loan. First of all, there are parents that do take like interest from their children, and there are parents that won't give that money. And there are parents that do have like those verbal contract with their children, right? Like it doesn't. It's just. It seems. What bothers me the most is that I do find the question of like when a son or a daughter are adults, what do they owe their parents? But I think that like without addressing what happened before that, like it's just not something that's determinable, because I don't think monetary compensation or like monetary exchange between like parents and their children, even when their children are adults, are like the only thing that ends up happening in that relationship. So I think it's super reductive to talk about relationships like that, especially a relationship between parent and child.
Well,
And
we can
also,
make
can I just ask
assumptions.
the
We can hold
question
on.
of
We can make base assumptions. We can set the stage saying that like Wick tried to do previously, saying that these people were great parents, right? We start off with that, and then we can bring in these other variables. I think those
What does
aren't
that even mean?
great parent. Whatever you think it means, Katie, right? Whatever you define as a
Oh,
great parent
it's
in your
very
mind,
different, I'm sure, than
do
what
that,
what
right? That's
Prime.
fine. Whatever.
yeah.
I'll work off of that. I don't get. The point is, I want
Yeah,
to
you
get to the
get to
principle of
decide.
it all, right? To get to the principle of it all. Oh, well, unless you think great parents wouldn't act this to begin with, then I guess we can't work off of that definition. But beyond that, but if they've raised their kids in a way that Katie would find acceptable, right? Up to the point of 18 years old, right? Then I think we can make make that base assumption. Now, if you want to bring in afterwards, saying that well maybe there was some sort of abuse or neglect or something like that, right? We can. But if I've already said, right, I'm already on your side there. I've already said, hey, well maybe I'm not. Hey, the kids should be able to sue for that, right? Like for abuse, why not sue the parents for abusing their kids, right? If you can actually prove it, okay,
Well,
like the
yeah.
damage is done, right? Just like how if anyone else hurts you, you can sue for damages, not your parents. I can do that. But go ahead, Corey.
Well, so does that? I would ask, does that include emotional neglect? How do you quantify that, right? And I think that's much more widespread than you think it is.
Well,
And
you don't know what
also,
I think. Don't tell me what I think.
okay, well then maybe we're on the same page. Maybe you think it's the vast majority of children that are raised that are emotionally neglected and not emotionally fulfilled. And so like operating under that baseline, then really the bill is running on
Old
the
money.
parents from day one.
I have
It's
a
the children.
question on that,
Um,
if I may.
and
Oh, sorry.
also, if you're going at whatever 18 is the cutoff, it can so is it like in your mind like at 18, the parents can just start, um, like the clock is running at 18, and now all of a sudden like rent is racking up, they don't know about it, even if they're like still living at home, and then
No.
like
Oh,
once they move up,
But they're parents
Expectation.
who do this, though. They're parents
Yeah.
who do this. Once their kids turn 18, they ask them to get a job and to pay rent.
Yep.
yeah, I agree, and that's outlined,
Yeah.
hopefully, and
Would you
some
consider that abuse?
depending on the context.
Because the
I
child
don't
didn't
know.
ask for to be
There,
born. So would you consider that abuse for them to get a job or asking them to get a job once they turn into an adult and they can work and pay a certain portion of bills and stuff? That is that abuse against the child?
that in a vacuum alone, just asking a child to work is not abuse at 18. No, but I think there's other contextual factors there
I
that
mean,
then
are we?
actually push into
So,
abusive
are we
territory.
talking about kids now? Or are we talking about adults now? This is like, what's going on,
Mm,
right?
No,
So is this
so
like, we're talking about suing parents for when a kid's neglected it during childhood, right?
So
Okay,
I,
so if you turn 18
I
and
was
have to get
asking
a
if it extends.
so
I was asking if it
into
extends
adulthood,
into, yeah,
come
because
on.
they're still their child forever, I guess,
I
right?
do have a question
They're
for
still
Corey.
have that responsibility.
Come on.
yeah, Wick, by all
Yeah,
means.
sure. So you mentioned that, and maybe this is a little off topic, but I'm very curious, and if you can answer it quickly, that'd be great. You believe that the vast majority of children are emotionally neglected? Is that
Uh,
what you
uh,
said? Just so.
I don't know if I used vast. If I did,
Oh,
I would say
okay, the
majority,
majority. The
and
majority of children
potentially
are
vast. Yeah,
emotionally neglected.
absolutely. I
Okay.
have no problems
It's
making
off
that play.
topic. We'll talk later about that though, because I'm
Sure.
super curious.
with
I
both.
agree with the sentiment, so I would love to be in that conversation. I don't think parents just don't have the resources or the time. A majority of them don't. So anyway,
I agree.
That was my question. I was just
It's a good
simple
question.
answers.
Totally valid question, which I would love to explore. Absolutely.
So I do have a question though. So to kind of like clarify, so from what I gather, what you guys are saying is that a parent can raise a child, try to raise the child with their values of maybe having kids or something like that, put aside money to assist that child in those values, and that when that child becomes an adult, or at whatever point that they're able to marry, whatever that point is, that child can then use the parents' savings without expectation or consequence on with that money, right? That's what you guys are saying, that should be allowed, right?
so
Like a child should be able to do that.
A minor, a child.
No, I'm saying like like once they go of age, because
a son or daughter
I'm
after they're 18.
a son or
After they're
daughter
18.
after they're 18, they marry, they've been put through school, they marry.
If the
I'm not
parents,
saying I'm not focusing in on the
Sure, I
the
get you.
kids.
If-
I'm
I mean, but-
focusing in on the investment
let
that
me
this
answer your question if I can. So if the
father
parents,
is saving.
like there's two separate situations here, right? If the parents tell their 18-year-old son, "Hey, we're going to pay for your college, but we expect to be paid back once you get a job," that's a lot different than there being no discussion at all, which happens, right? And both parties just kind of assume, but they don't really communicate because people suck at communicating. And then 10 years down the line, the parents are like, "Okay, well, time to pay us back since you got that doctor job." And the kid's like, "Wait, what?" I think those are two separate situations. So the first, absolutely. If that was the agreement made by both parties, then yes. I think
Then
monetarily
they're
that should happen.
monetarily they should.
Mhm.
Okay. And would you want that to be legally binding? Because it would be a verbal
Not unless it was a
conversation between
legal
son.
contract. Not unless it was like a specific legal contract, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
But at any
then,
point they could still say, "Screw you, Dad. I'm not doing it anyway."
Not if it's a contract.
yeah, if it's a legal contract, no, they can't, and that's why if I in a lot of cases that if parents were to go down that right, and I've known friends of mine who have entered into legal contracts with their parents, like after they hit 18 or they're 20 or whatever. One of my siblings actually has a legal contract with my parents to pay rent,
Mhm.
right? And you better believe if she didn't pay rent, right? And because she's 30 years old, and if she doesn't pay
Mhm.
rent, there's going to be an issue there. And if it escalates, it could be legal a legal issue because it's a legal contract. But again, in the second case where it's just everyone just kind of assumes and no one communicates, no, I don't think that's a reasonable expectation to ask. But like we're focusing so much on the monetary, but like I think that duties transcend that, right? Like it's a duty of care. Corey Campbell mentioned emotional neglect and things like that. I think the emotional care and the emotional responsibility that parents and children have for each other is an actual thing. I do think that children and parents both have an emotional duty to one another to a certain extent, right? And again, I don't think it should be legally enforced or legally binding or anything like that because it's super hard to quantify, super hard to kind of codify. Um, but when it comes to like things like, again, if my parents raised me right, which they did, and then they get very sick, and well, I'll give you my personal situation right now. I'm actually living not with my parents, but with other relatives because they helped me out in the past. They got hospitalized with COVID. They needed someone to come care with them. Guess where I'm at right now, right? Like because they helped me, I'm helping them. I think that's you scratch my back, I'm gonna scratch yours, and I
Nah,
want to
fuck
be able
'em.
to do that.
But B more is saying, in your case, you should still be like, if you said fuck them, you'd still be fine in that situation
I mean, even
morally.
yeah. I mean, I'll still be cool with you, Wick, if you said fuck him.
well, I wouldn't be cool with me. And one of the reasons I do things is so I can feel good about myself when I buy myself, right? And I think that I would judge me if I didn't do that. If I knew I could help someone who had helped me in the past and I did not do it, I would feel bad. I would feel bad about myself.
Well, I would ask maybe the clarifying question: are you strictly doing it out of like obligation of from a transactional nature,
No,
or because of some sort
not
of
as
feelings of
strictly.
affection, of
Not
love,
it's
hopefully?
not strictly obligation, but to deny there was any I didn't feel any obligation would be a lie. I do feel some, but I do care about them too as well.
Well, right.
Like they're
I would
part
say
of my
I would say the
family.
caring is probably the more important factor of
I
like a
think the most
caring,
important factor is that I'm
affectionate
doing it,
relationship.
right? Like the
Like you bring
reasons
up
why are
uh,
or
you brought up an example earlier of like the CPR example or like the Heimlich maneuver example. Like how would you feel if you received CPR and then that person just kicked you in the nuts? Would you then feel an obligation to that person?
so if the person gave me CPR, it resuscitated me and then kicked me in the nuts, I'd have uh
I'd be
Would you feel? Would you say,
confused.
"Oh man, I feel so obligated towards you"?
Feel highly confused.
yeah,
What
I
if
don't
they
know
saved
what
your
I
life
would feel.
specifically because they wanted to kick
The
you in the
debt
nuts?
has
He
been
wanted you to
paid at
feel
that
it.
point.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
even.
That's my
That's
point.
the point.
That's
It's
the
not
point.
indefinite. It's not in. It's a
Okay.
good point.
But I guess I disagree with the premise that like it's the reason why that's important here. It's important. The important part for my relatives here is that I'm helping them, regardless of fucking why. It doesn't matter why, right? My
I
intent.
disagree. It matters
No,
why.
why does matter? Why could be you're
Yeah,
simply
exactly.
there
But
because you hope to inherit something.
that's such a small portion of the equation. The actual care that I give them, the going out to the grocery store to buy their food when they need it,
Yeah, but here's the thing,
helping
Wick.
them get to rehab,
We're
things
already
like that.
acknowledging that's a positive. We're already acknowledging
No,
that
I'm
that's
just
good.
saying.
But the whole point is after that, then these factors kick in, and then it doesn't hurt to talk about them. It's like
No, it
nobody's
doesn't
not
hurt.
saying what you're
Doesn't hurt.
doing isn't the right thing or isn't good,
Sure.
either
And
or.
I'm sorry for like maybe I shouldn't have personalized this too much, right? I want
There's
to take
nothing
it
wrong with that.
beyond me. Like this isn't like look at what I'm doing and I'm so great. I don't want to give that
You
impression.
got to remember, Prime said that if you weren't there helping them out, that is they could just take it to court. So you're doing the right thing.
Okay. I,
But do you understand? Like so when I say things like if your parents have raised you right, like and done right by you, whatever you consider that to be,
Hmm.
and then later in life they need your help and you refuse to give it to them, I think that's immoral.
Okay, send them to the morality cops to get a couple finger wags.
So, like in the kick in the nuts example, like if you're not helping this person who gave you CPR, like you're immoral.
Yeah, congrats.
but I think, but I think
I'm
even
immoral,
from,
rolling in money. Like,
but
Like-
even from what the article, from what we were reading from the initial article, we've kind of gone general. But even from the article, when they're, I'm sorry, Katie, go ahead. Sorry.
Because I'll
I don't wanna
forget it.
get
I'm
too
so
far.
sorry. So, Wick, if I have determined that my parents have not raised me right, do I not owe them anything?
I guess it depends, right? Like
That's what I
are
thought.
I still say like look, ideally, even if someone treats me bad, I still think I should treat them well, right? Even if someone treats me terribly, I still think I should treat
do I get a
them well.
discount?
But I find it
I-
understandable. But I
I'm
find it
I'm with Prime.
understandable.
If my
I'm with
parents didn't
Prime
do
on
the
that one.
best
You should.
job, can
Yeah,
I get a
I'm-
discount?
I'm
No,
with
I-
Prime on that one. You should still sue your parents.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Talk to customer service.
if you think you weren't raised right, you
Katie
should sue
Goetz
your
didn't
parents.
say
for
I
that.
was abused,
So-
right? Like she said,
Is grandpa customer service?
But so hold on. Oh, God, that's funny. So hold on. I want to tackle this, and from what Corey was saying previously, right? Corey was trying to bring this up, talking about how widespread emotional neglect is. I guess, right? Yeah, neglect specifically, right? And yeah, but we can factor this in, right? So, and so
I'm curious. Yeah.
when you no
Yeah,
problem.
me too.
When it's time to deliver a product, right, a service, you bring that in court, right? Like there is an idea, and I'm sure there's like a word for this, like a legal term, but I don't know what it is, right? But like there's a term for like reasonable expectations, right? That you can that a person who's going to provide that service can only do so within reasonable expectations. So if you want me to bake that cake, right? But then you got expectations that cake would be baked within minutes. Well, that's beyond reasonable, right? Like I can't do that, right? Or maybe somehow like the cream, like or like covering the cake, is like absolutely perfect with like absolutely no nicks or no indentations or whatever, right? Like that will be beyond what we can expect. So, going on what you said, right? That emotional abuse is just like neglect. Neglect is endemic with child raising, right? That parents generally can't meet all the emotional needs of their children, right? There's some kids who need more emotional needs than others. Since that is endemic to it, right? Then to expect a parent to have done that is unreasonable. And so, no, you can't sue on that particularly, right? Maybe emotional abuse is different, but on neglect, if that is endemic to parenting, right? It's just
Then maybe
something
less
that happens.
people should be parents.
Oh, I'm gonna bring in maybe a little bit, whatever of whatever, a grenade into the topic. So, how would you quantify something like corporal punishment or spanking? Is that okay? If you were ever struck as a child, then
Ever? No, I don't
depends
think
if did they go this way or did they go this way?
yeah, exactly.
This is 10% more expensive.
Oh,
Exactly.
well,
Yeah.
was the kid a little? Was the kid a little shit? Then I guess.
Was he a
Oh,
Nazi?
That's
If he
minus
was a
5%.
Nazi,
Was the
then
kid a little shit? Then maybe.
Exactly. It's so interesting to me. The anti-capitalist uses such capitalistic language.
Can I sue a parent for
Because
not beating
I
their
work
kid
in a
enough?
capitalist
everything.
world.
Can I sue a parent for not beating their kid enough?
look. Again, this comes back to my
Are
point
they a little
earlier,
shit?
where I
Then
don't
maybe
think
you
it's,
should. Yeah.
I don't think it's
Then
reasonable.
Prime,
for-
I am suing your parents.
You should. You probably should. No, they owe the world.
I don't think like when you say raising you right? Like raising you right. Again, that's not perfection. There's a difference between raising right and perfection, right? Like I think there's a substantive difference here.
If
And
I'm
simply
paying
because your
for it, it
parents
needs to be
weren't
perfection.
even if your parents
I'm
weren't
paying for it.
perfect, they can still raise you right. And even if they don't raise you entirely right, again, I still think that you have some sort of some sort
Familial.
of
They-
familial responsibility, right? That again, this changes when actual abuse is involved, right? When there's actual physical abuse or other kinds of emotional abuse involved, I think that the equation changes because the variables have changed.
I mean,
But
they
I
can raise
absolutely
you.
I would
think
ask again. I'm going to ask the question: Does spanking qualify? And because that is
no,
absolutely abuse. Well, so then
no,
you're almost
it does not.
contradicting yourself because there's
So
virtually
Corey, let me.
no distinction
The reason
between.
why.
I don't.
Because
What if I adopt a
gets-
kid that used to get
it-
beat every day, and then in my household they only get beat twice per quarter, right?
Fiscal
They-
year.
Yeah. Every
Yes,
fiscal
it's a-
year they take 4
It's
beatings. But
a
in their
net
foster
gain
home,
on
they took
the beating.
37 beatings, right? I don't think this kid should be able to sue me. I'm offering a better environment. I think honestly they should pay me.
No,
Is
hitting
there-
is hitting. There's virtually no difference
No.
between
But
spanking.
but,
or
but I
absolutely.
invested
No, I
in getting them out of
disagree
an
with this
abusive
100%.
area and
There's
putting them into a
absolutely a
less
difference
abusive area.
between
I
a light
am
smack.
owed something for this.
There's absolutely a difference between a rap on the hand and someone beating you. There is
No,
a
not
fucking
to a
difference.
developing brain.
Yo,
The
you've never been
neuroscience
beat
disagree with
then.
you.
Like, I'm just saying.
Again, I'm
Like,
beating
you've
them
never
less.
been beat. If you think that a slap on the wrist is the
Yeah.
same as being beat, you've never had that.
Not
you're
the same
asking-
thing.
you're asking. So,
At all.
I mean, just
Child development experts and again the American Academy of Pediatrics also disagree.
No,
with
no,
you.
no, no,
Like,
no.
like-
Actually, provide. You have to actually provide a source to say.
Like-
Yeah,
for
like,
them to
no,
say
I-
that
I want
a
to see
slap
that
on the
because,
hand is the
Like
same
they've
as
never
getting
been
an
wrong
ass
before,
whooping.
Corey.
What
Like
I'm
they've never been
qualifying
wrong
as
before.
spanking, okay? Like, there's a reason why the American Academy of Pediatrics and the American Psychological Association has this statement of pretty much don't spank your child, don't strike your child, no amount of physical, pretty much interaction with your child that's
which includes a
non-consensual.
slap on the wrist.
Fine.
That is a physical interaction with the child,
Fine.
and that to equate that as the same as beating a child is is nonsense.
Find
It's
me
kinda
that
hilarious
statement.
'cause, like,
Find me that
it-
source, Corey.
No, so
Find me
check
that
this out.
source.
A physical
Absolutely.
interaction with your kid could literally be slapping their hand from touching a grill, or pulling their arm from them not from driving, walking into an active street. So no physicality whatsoever. This study is either bunk or it's not making the conclusion you think it's making.
Yeah.
They're probably making a disclaimer that you might have missed or something.
Literally, you slap the kid's hand off, don't burn yourself. You pull the
Maybe-
kid's arm, don't get ran over. Abuse, no physicality whatsoever.
Maybe
It's a
they're
net
be-
negative.
maybe
Yeah,
they're
I
being
think
hy-
getting ran over would be a bigger negative. I would
Maybe-
love to
may-
see this study.
maybe they're being
to see how big the
hyperbolic,
conclusion it makes.
maybe they're being hyperbolic there and saying to pull back, saying that like, okay, what people consider a spanking is different, right? And so like what someone else's idea of a spanking could be like something they consider light, so they're saying just don't do any of that stuff, so we've got it covered. So I'm trying to be terrible here.
Spanking in general is bad, so I do have to agree with Corey with that. What I don't agree is that this study is going to say any physical intervention, don't do it. Now, spanking's bad. Hitting your
Yeah.
kid
That's
is
not what he
bad.
said.
Is what he
No,
said.
he said slap on the
Any
wrist.
repercussions.
Yeah,
No,
he's-
he said
yeah.
physically.
Yes,
Yeah,
and-
he did say
I
it.
put-
And that's
I
the reason
put
why I'm bringing
one.
it up.
And also, I
But-
put it in our group DM.
And look, I'll even bite
okay,
this
not in the
bullet
stream
here.
yard.
Put it in group DM. Yeah, group DM.
Absolutely.
I even bite this bullet here. Even if your parents did spank you sometimes, I don't think that's the same as, again, physical abuse. I think that it can be abusive, right? But there's a big difference between being spanked a few times as a child and being abused as a child. And if you were spanked a few times as a child,
There you go.
I would hesitate
Pick.
to call that
Pick
like
away.
being abused.
So, Katie, you have something to say?
No.
No, Katie, I want to hear your thoughts.
I think people have really interesting thresholds for abuse.
I agree.
It's the spanking conversation is always interesting because people are so willing to they're so unwilling to condemn just like behavior that is just demonstrably leads to worst outcomes in children because we don't want to call things abuse. Like I would argue that you could have acted abusively towards your child and have still not have been as bad of a parent as other parents.
Yeah.
Maybe you were a good parent in other ways, but to not call that abuse, I don't see why not. Like
There's
and also there's this fear of this being emotional. Like the word abuse has so much abuse happens and it's like it's part of family dynamics. It's not good, but everyone have been abused at some point at some moment. It doesn't mean that their childhood has been awful or that it's like everything to the garbage, but it's just like to not call that abuse. It's like
We
what's
can't
even the
call
point?
Them all the same. We cannot
Hold on,
label
wait.
every.
Wait, I'm going to go to you in a quick
Yes, you can.
second.
Spanking is
Corey,
abuse, 'cause not all
what I
abuse
need
is
from
as
you
bad
is
as
that
others.
statement that you gave us, like not just like a whole list of like random studies, like that statement that you gave us specifically, saying that like that intervention, all
Yeah,
of
no
it is,
physical intervention
yeah.
whatsoever.
Give us
It's
that.
crazy.
But go ahead,
Yeah,
go ahead.
You won't
Yeah.
be able to provide that, and that was my point.
Well,
Because I
wait,
do
so-
believe spanking
okay,
is
so
abusive.
Can
Spanking
I
is bad.
can I
but,
touch upon
yeah.
this for a second? Okay. Well, first of all, there's a study in there titled very explicitly "Spanking as an Adverse Childhood Event." There's also a study in there in terms about expertise, but there's a reason why. If you want to
Wasn't
go
your
down
That's
this
not
claim.
what
road,
we
we
asked
can.
for.
There's
not your
I
claim.
understand. There's a
Okay.
reason why. Okay, we have no good studies, and I will fully admit that no good studies about hitting children because no ethics committee will approve,
Not what
intentionally
we
hitting
asked
children.
either.
Okay, well, yeah. So like,
still not the
you made a
point.
statement.
Right.
We're just
You made a
asking to back up
statement,
that
and we want you to
statement.
back it up. You said no
So-
physical intervention whatsoever. I am going to put on the record, tell you, yes, spanking is bad. Spanking is a net negative. You're going to get worse long-term benefit from it. But you said no physical intervention whatsoever. And
Yeah,
this is the thing
that's
about
the
this
statement
conversation.
of the American Academy of Pediatrics.
Okay, and I want you to
can-
provide that. That's the point.
Okay, yeah, sure,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Go ahead, Wick.
So one of the problems I have here is, well, yes, I agree. Spanking is bad. I want to make that very clear. Spanking is bad. But when we call it abuse, we cannot start calling every bad thing abuse. Just like we
Yes, we
can't,
can.
we can, but it makes the word almost meaningless. It's like calling everyone a Nazi, right? It loses the
No,
meaning.
spanking
It's
is
calling
abuse.
everything violence. It loses the meaning. And we have to have granularity of
Listen.
meaning so we can significantly differentiate between someone who spanked their child and someone who beat their child,
So,
right?
yeah,
To call them
look,
both
Oh,
abuse
yeah,
would
the
apply that they're
difference.
both the same, and they are both not the same.
I got this
They're very much
mind-blowing
not.
I got this mind-blowing take for you, Wick. This lib brain. I think you should pull further left and understand. Abuse exists on a spectrum. Don't the libs hate to hear it? There's many types of abuse, right?
Because
There's
you know why
abuse of
this
me
is
chopping
wrong,
your
Beemore?
arm off,
Because
right?
if I
And
say
there's
I was
abuse. If I
abused,
punch you in the face, am I abusing you? If I repeatedly punch you in the face, am I abusing you? Yes. If I chop both your arms off, am I abusing you? Yes. It's a spectrum here. This is just absolutely mindless. That just because it's not bad
it is
enough, it's
mindless.
not.
It is mindless. And let me tell you why, Beemore. Is because if
Okay,
I
let's
come
hear
up
it.
to you and say, if I come to the cops and say, Beemore abused me,
And
even
I'm gonna
though
say how
you were
so.
mean to me on
Demonstrate.
Twitter once, and that's a form of abuse, that's a whole fucking different story than if you went and you punched me in the face, right? These are two separate fucking things, and we have
First
to use different
Wait,
terms
just admit that
No,
you
no,
want to hit children.
differentiate
Just
from
no, no,
these
no,
say
no,
that,
things.
let me
and
come
let's
to
just
this.
Because
Let me
they
end
come
it
are
to this.
not
there.
the
Just say,
same.
just
Look,
They
say
are
that you
not
want
the
to hit.
same. Do not
Just,
pretend. Stop
just,
fucking
just
pretending.
bite the bullet and say you want to hit children.
No.
Like,
Let's deal with this hypothetical, right? If
I
you
want to
call
hit
the cops,
children. I want
if you
to.
call the cops,
Kick
right,
their
Wick?
fucking
yeah, so
asses.
as long as you're
They've
honest
been little
about it.
shits. Go
If you
ahead.
call the cops and you say B-More is abusing me, cops are fucking idiots. You should probably be more specific.
If I go on,
If you
if I go
understand
on a
policing in
panel,
America,
we
you
can take points off
understand
of it.
how
You're getting
stupid
down a
cops
rabbit
are.
hole that's
So the rabbit
not
hole
helpful.
is that your hypothetical is so trash, and I want to actually engage with it. And now you want to say, don't focus on what I said. Okay, then let me just ignore everything you
If I
said.
go on a
Then
panel, you're being pedantic. If I
maybe
go
it's
on a
better
panel
if I
and say,
just
be more
completely
abused,
ignore you.
if I
If
do
you
a
don't want me to operate with your hypothetical, is that a better option,
abuse
Wick?
me, right? We don't. If I go and I host a panel and the topic.
Oh, new hypothetical, right? You're gonna
Or-
bring up a new one now?
Let him
because the
finish.
first one was
Wait.
trash?
Let him finish. Wick, please.
Yeah, so I have a panel. I say, be more abused me. And then as we go through the panel, it finds out, oh, he was just mean to me on Twitter, right? Whereas if I say, be more abused me, and then we find out later that you would come to my house and punch me repeatedly in the face over and over and over again, yeah, I think it'd be a little fucking dishonest to title the first thing, the Twitter thing, abuse, and also title the punching in the face thing abuse. I think it's dishonest.
And in this
No, what
case,
I would do
spanking
is
is the Twitter abuse.
yeah,
It's-
exactly.
it's-
Yeah.
You're like, the reason why you're doing this
It's
is
just
because you're
dishonest.
thinking
You're trying
about
to level these
people.
terms. You're trying to.
We're
equate
not leveling them. He said
You
a
are. You
spectrum, right?
absolutely are.
No. What you're doing is you're thinking if people are being beaten up by their parents in a most malicious, hurtful, horrible way, and they're being beaten with a belt and cigarettes are being put on them, then like being spanked every once in a while, I mean, is that really abuse? Comparatively, I guess when you do it like that, you can dismiss a lot of things, but both things can be wrong. Like, and when I say wrong, I don't mean because you said it earlier, like spanking is bad, but is it abuse? Yes, people can abuse people in lesser ways and in greater ways. Abuse, as Bmore said, it's complex, but it's on a spectrum, right? But both things can still be abused. So for you to compare it to like someone being mean on Twitter, and to an extent, like
Don't
people
just
have
dismiss your
killed
point like
themselves
that.
from
You're
like
being an
online
idiot right
bullying.
now.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You
It
gotta
can
go.
absolutely be
No. The reason why you should not
No, you gotta-
real quick. The reason why you should not dismiss her point is because go ahead. If you want to dismiss her point, then give us your diagnostic criteria of exactly what thresholds need to be met in each and every fucking situation in order for you to consider it abuse. If you don't want to just acknowledge the fact that abuse exists on a spectrum.
Abuse does exist on their spectrum.
It does, right? But here's the thing about being a Nazi, though. Being a Nazi has very specific diagnostic criteria. Abuse exists on a spectrum.
What are you objected to?
Nazism, not necessarily.
What are you objected to, Wick?
To is when we use the same term to describe very different phenomenon. That yes, it is abuse on a spectrum in different ways, but we cannot
listen
call
to yourself.
we
Abuse
cannot
on a spectrum.
We cannot
This is-
say You obviously aren't listening to me because I cannot finish my point without you wanting to jump down my throat because your brain fucking turns off and you're like, no. Twitter said I'm
Wick,
right.
calm
so I have
down.
to
Turn your
go
brain
in
back
this.
on, Wick. You
Your
got
brain
this.
fucking turns
Wick,
off.
I'll back you
Turn
up.
your brain on.
Wick, I'll
Turn your
back you
brain
up
on.
on this because I think they might agree with you in another context, right? And in fact, Katie has agreed with you in another context. So when we're talking about the subject of rape and sexual assault, right? We can recognize that the different interactions that that two people will have within the privacy of their bedrooms are complicated, right? And that there is a spectrum there of like negative or even neutral to negative interactions, right? And where you place that along that spectrum, right? Like this is very subjective, but in any case, that our language isn't specific enough to deal with that. At this point, right? We just call everything assault, right, or rape. When like if you look at this situation,
that's a bit of a mischaracterization of what I said.
Of what
that I think.
But you don't. But okay, so then you don't believe that. So you're saying that like our language is already specific enough, and that we don't need a more specific.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
Okay.
that like in the context of like there's like if we want to talk about rape, so there's violent, there's a spectrum to how violent a rape can get, right? But we would still call it rape under certain criteria, right? So it's okay to say that spanking is abuse and also acknowledge other types of abuse. It's not like this really bad thing is happening over there and we call that abuse, so we can't call anything less bad abuse as well. No,
Exactly.
there are just certain again, it's like it's literally I don't know how to explain it except there's a spectrum, but in the certain like parameters of the spectrum, some things fall into the spectrum and some stuff doesn't. It's not a complex notion. Like
I can't call that shirt blue, Prime. It's not
Not blue.
bright enough to be blue.
Not blue.
Hold on.
It's green.
I have a question for Corey. You've looked at these studies more closely than I have.
I've literally looked at them on my own stream. Absolutely.
Yeah. My question here is, because we keep stating, I'm just asking, we keep saying that spanking is abuse. Is it that these studies have taken studies of parents who engage in child abuse, and one of the forms that they engage in child abuse is spanking, and therefore they've run studies to show that spanking is pretty common in those who are abused, and the act of spanking, as opposed to, and then they've made that correlation to saying that spanking is wrong. Is that am I just misunderstanding that?
There's multiple studies, and yes, all of the vast majority are longitudinal. The same way we teased out that smoking is bad, we didn't run the controlled trial of giving healthy people cigarettes and then tracking people who were non-smokers. We have to do the same thing with spanking because no ethics committee approves the intentional hitting of children. And so they do make that distinction very clearly in terms of there are totally a subset of parents that fall into the realm of what we'd call, I guess, using legal terms in the United States, because spanking I think is still technically legal, and corporal punishment is still technically legal in the United States, where yes, there are abusive parents, and they make that distinction that spanking, this is why the American Academy of Pediatrics, this is why the American Psychological Association explicitly says, do not spank your children, ever.
But
it is equivalent to it's essentially equivalent to a child's developing brain to harsher forms of abuse.
No.
Yes, and I can understand that, but they're making an association based off of, they're making that association and that connection based off of the act of spanking being done by parents who engage in child abuse, in addition to other things, including neglect.
No.
Child abuse
and
is
mistreatment.
spanking, right?
Yeah, well, so that's where
It's not only the spanking. There are other.
No, they are trying to make that distinction of trying to push spanking into their own child abuse, where they are tracking parents who explicitly say, "I spank my child," and they also have run studies where they actually ask the children, "Do your parents spank you or hit you? What is the frequency?" And it's not. These aren't randomized controlled trials because, again, ethics. But we have good data. I mean, there's literally a study in the 10 studies that I linked saying explicitly in the title, we know enough to stop hitting our children.
Okay. I was just asking because
It's
I was just looking at that because
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's a
when you
valid question.
call, yeah, when you call again, my whole point here is we need better terms. We need better words. The words we are using are dumb. They're not helpful. It's causing harm. It's doing a wrong thing, which is it's equating and it's
Equivalizing,
equivalizing. Sorry, I'm getting
equivocating,
tongue-tied here.
or whatever. Yeah.
Equivalizing people who spank their kids and people who beat their kids. When you just call it all
Equivalizing.
abuse, if you umbrella term and use the same umbrella term here for the what are distinctly different types of actions, right? With
Yeah,
different
abuse.
Can
intents and
you
with different
distinguish
things.
them
Abuse,
for me?
different types of
You
abuse.
have
Yes.
you have to distinguish them. You can't just call them all abuse because it's silly. It's silly. It doesn't work.
So you want
No one
me?
takes
Can't
you
we call them
seriously.
both
because not all
abuse?
No one
striking is
people
the
stop taking
same.
you
We're
seriously.
gonna call it medium abuse, and then like light abuse, and then
You
full
can
abuse.
like
And
say it all you want. You could just call it one thing spanking, one thing's beating your kid. You can use those specific terms.
And
You
we've just
say
not
I was
used the
spanked
word abuse
or
there's
I
at
was
all.
beat.
there's things that are abusive, and then there's less
You
abusive.
can
And there's
say
things that
I
are
was
more
spanked or I was
abusive.
beat, and I
Katie,
was beat, and people
um,
automatically know what you mean. If you say I was abused, people don't automatically know what you mean. One is helpful, one is not.
Katie, I think I missed the point when you were responding because I got distracted. I had to do something for the stream. But you responded to me. You responded to me very strongly, saying that like I had mischaracterized your feelings on this. So I asked you like whether our language is specific enough when it comes to sexual abuse. Or sorry, sexual assault, right, between two consenting
Yeah.
adults. And
So
your
when you and I
response,
talked, like we understand, like you and I agree that we're lacking words to describe certain actions.
Yeah.
But if we're equivocating it to the conversation that we're now having, I
okay,
think spanking is very clearly falls under the abuse category, the same way that I would argue that there are certain types of acts of rape, even though they can happen on a violent spectrum, that all still fall into a rape category, which is different than sexual assault, right? So when we talk about like burning and like turning off a cigarette on your kid, I would argue that's abusive. If you're going to use your belt to hit your kid, that's abusive. If you're going to use corporal punishment on your kid, that's abusive. And spanking is part of that. Do I think that yelling as your kid is abusive? No, I wouldn't call it that. Do I think that
Yelling is a form
obsessive,
of
like
emotional abuse, though.
yeah,
Yelling definitely is abuse.
I
Which
would
is
call
why-
it emotional abuse,
but
and
okay,
it
so
could
Silly to
be
do, though.
abusive. It
Corey
could be
is
abusive under certain circumstances, under certain thresholds. Spanking is, by the virtue of what it is, already crosses that threshold because it's physical violence on your child.
um
Even if
I
you
was
mean
go-
it to be really nice.
I would need I would need to look at these studies. The reason why I brought up this issue, or at least why or not issue, why I kind of like I pull back from this statement is because when you say child abuse, it involves when you say child abuse, it involves not like the studies you're showing are linking spanking to child abuse, which can come with other things in that study. And I don't know if that linking of that I don't know if that making that link specifically is accurate, is an accurate
Okay,
depiction of
I'm
that.
a literal scientist. Do you think you're better than child development expert? Do you think there's a
Are
reason
you a child
why the
development scientist?
no, I'm
No,
relying
of
on
course.
the
So both of you are equally qualified on this.
I'm relying on the
That's not how
American.
it works.
This is why.
Rick. You
Okay,
be
This is why
anti-science if you want to.
but
You
my-
just
the
smile about
American
it. You look
Academy of
but-
fucking
Pediatrics
dumb.
has
Yeah,
this
if you
statement.
assume
Let me
listen,
okay, Corey. Okay, Corey, you're
Same
asking for my credentials specifically. Let me.
No, I'm not asking, but like so. Like,
Hey, you're fucking dumb, B-More. That's just true.
no, that's not. No,
I don't know what you said, but we'll talk
What-
about it later.
The strategy that you appear to be adopting, and I might be wrong, is like, well, there's some flaws with these studies, and I have issues that they're not really teasing out child abuse versus spanking. Do you think that question or that distinction hasn't been made, and there's like no reason why, there's no basis for why the American
not-
Academy of Pediatrics or the American
I'm not
Psychological
I am
Okay.
not denying that a correlation within the study has been made. That is very clear in the study. The thing that I am trying to
And
figure out
there's
here
10 of them.
is okay, but the thing I'm trying to figure out here is, was this correlation done with understanding that there is a spectrum? Because if I flick my finger on my listen, I'm asking you in this scenario, if my father or if I had a child and if I flicked my finger at the child's ear, am I spanking my child? Is that or
Yes,
if I
they ask
you
their
know
children.
like do they make that correlation as well?
Go through those studies. There are very good ones in terms of they explicitly ask the children, what type of kind of quote unquote punishment do you receive from your parents? And they also they sometimes tease it out by frequency. Like they make very clear, like, have they, assessed every single like scenario that you can think of like, oh, I tapped them on the forehead. Oh, and that means it's spanking and corporal. Like, of course not. That's like a virtually impossible thing to tease out. That's why like it's very explicit in the title. Like, we know enough to stop hitting our children. That's why, again, I'm not relying on my credentials. Like I'm in line with the experts. Okay, I'm in line with the American Academy of Pediatrics. I'm in line.
I agree.
Like all you're
And that-
engaging is like, we can't trust. Like you're basically an anti-vaxxer at this point. We can't trust the studies.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
they're flawed.
That's it.
Like,
Exactly.
That's it.
No,
Like,
I didn't.
And it's not like it's just one study. It's like there's plenty. So at this point, you're just an anti-vaxxer, and it's fine.
I clearly
Just
stated that I accept the correlation.
Just say you want to hit children and
I
move
just
on.
have a.
That's it.
I-
Like,
I-
I
you're on it.
stated. I
I'm
specifically
totally
went out
connected.
of my way.
I'm trying to
specifically went
fuck
out of my
some
way to
5-year-olds
say
up.
that.
That's what I'm
Corey,
trying
I think
to
the
do.
problem is that people have a hard time like coming to terms with their parents might have been at least a little abusive. Oh, I can't use that word because if it's a little abusive, you have to
Just stop
you gotta use a new
generalizing.
word.
Like, look, why
No,
generalize?
no,
Why not
no.
use specifics? Why not be specific when we're talking to each other? Why use these really general terms which
Wait.
hinder
Can we do
I'm
both?
reading
Can
the
we
word
say you
abuse.
were spanked
because
and
it
that was
hinders
abusive?
communication. Being
No, it does not.
overly general hinders communication. I no longer know what you mean when you say words like abuse. Like if you came to me tomorrow, be more and said I was abused, I'd have to ask a whole fucking lot of questions.
Then
now
ask the
because-
questions
because
then.
I
What's
wouldn't
wrong
know
with
what you
that?
meant. Whereas if you came to me and says, "Hey, I was beat," I would know exactly. I wouldn't have to guess or anything. It would be very clear. It'd be concise, and that would be the ideal form of communication. One of the problems we have, and this is we've gone way off topic now, but this is a problem all across the spectrum in how we communicate
terrible
politically,
point.
how we communicate culturally, how we communicate interpersonally. Is we are overly general when we should be much more specific with each other.
No, but the
And
problem
initially,
is that
these words were no.
No,
specific.
here's the
Initially, these
problem,
words
though,
were
right?
specific, and they're being
No, they were not.
expanded.
No, not at all.
Right?
You
Not
don't
at
think the
all.
definition of words is being expanded?
You
No,
don't. Wait,
wait.
hold on. You
See,
don't
here's the
think
problem.
abuse, the word you've been using
Abuse
the term
has
abuse
abuse has always existed on a spectrum. It always has.
it has no.
always
I didn't
has.
say no. I said what I
So
said was
yeah. So don't
the
talk about all
definition-
words. I'm talking about one word here. Okay.
what I said. Did you hear what I said or you didn't?
No, I think that you're just making such a bad point, and I want to address
No.
another bad
I'm not
point, and that's
talking
what
about my
Wick said
point. I'm
earlier.
asking you if you heard that.
So,
I'm
Wick,
asking if you heard what I said.
You over here saying, "Oh, I don't want you to use these words. They're too general." Okay, they might be too general, but guess what? It still applies though. The word, even though the word might be too general for your taste, the word is still applicable. That's the issue. Now, what you're trying to say is that no, this word is not applicable at all. You can't use this word. No, you definitely can. Just because it's not specific enough for you, and then the fact that you don't want to ask questions, maybe. Honestly, if somebody says they were beat or somebody says that they were abused, either way, you should have some follow-up questions. You should actually care about them and get some information about what's going on. Either way.
But this assumes we're talking in one-to-one communication here. When we have multiple forms of communication where you just blast out information, right? Where people can't engage with you directly, such as news reports, such as Twitter, such as articles and things like that, where there is no back and forth, where you're simply blasting ideas out into the ether and things like that. And when you make a lot of comments, people make a lot of assumptions. And this we can see it right now in almost every facet of our culture in America. It's causing fucking problems.
So this is an interesting point, and I'll give you that, right? Because what you're demonstrating to me is this word, in your opinion, isn't suited for articles, but it's definitely suited for a panel. I can use the word now. Beating your kid, hitting your kid is abuse. Why can I say that on a panel versus on an article? Is because you can ask me to follow up questions, because this is a back and forth. So you're, in my opinion, you're demonstrating why this word is perfectly valid in this environment. So if I use the word here, you shouldn't have a problem with it. It's abuse.
Again, I do have a problem with it.
yeah,
because,
again,
I do not think that we should be equating spanking your kid or slapping on the wrist if they're touching the stove as abuse.
it's on the lower end of the spectrum of abuse, right?
On slapping the hand, you believe that's abuse? Be more.
Apparently.
Well, no, okay, no.
Yeah, that's what they've been saying.
There's a difference between like redirecting a child's hand that's about to whatever touch a hot stove.
You mean
No, not
hitting it, so
redirecting.
they
No,
don't.
we mean
You
hitting
mean
the hand.
hitting him.
Yeah.
No, we mean hitting.
You hit the hand away.
Yeah.
Or
No,
if
that's
they're
a
about to
punitive
walk to the
action.
street,
Yeah.
tackling
Yeah.
them.
There's
That's
a
why they-
difference. Yeah,
that-
let me cover this, Corey, real quick. There's a difference between like hitting your kid away from a grill, because you're not trying to inflict a punitive action. You're trying to stop them from getting burned, right? Versus your child does something, and that slapping does not save them in any way. You're conducting a punitive action. So when I'm talking about slapping and hitting your kid, I'm talking about the punitive action. Yes.
Yeah, that's what corporal punishment. Any with any intent to
No,
punish.
they never got that. They thought you meant like if you slap the kid away from like touching a hot stove. That's what you meant.
Well,
They-
we brought that up from the very beginning. That was literally
Yeah,
what
they
was
brought it up
stated many
initially.
times. Yeah.
Yeah, he walked it back though, and that's the reason why
Yeah.
I'm like, I disagreed with him earlier, and now
That's
since
not
we
punishment. Like
yeah,
any
we
sort
cleared
of-
it up.
If
Exactly,
you're
it's not a
intending to
punishment.
punish a child with any sort of physicality, like that's abuse. That again, the American Academy of Pediatrics is very clear. Like unless you show, like I literally linked like almost a dozen studies in the group chat. Like unless you provide any
I'll take your
counter-evidence,
I'll take your word for it.
you're
for
basically
now.
just an anti-vaxxer at that point. So
See,
No, I'll
just,
take-
you want to hit
no,
children.
studies up,
and
but
you
Just
don't
said
give
I'll
us a
take your
chance-
word
you
for it
don't-
for now.
You don't give us a chance to look at and see if you're presenting them accurately. I don't know. Like it's not helpful in this particular instance because I'd have to look at them
This
myself.
conversation
see
has
what they
happened
have
so
to
many
say.
times. You should have looked into
No,
it.
I
I also
I should have
was-
looked. I should have looked
it.
into a
Yeah, 'cause
panel
no, because
where I was
even
invited on
Prime
to
has-
talk about
Prime has-
having a
Prime has had this
kid.
discussion many times. You've heard it many times. This is literally equivalent to being anti-vax.
I guess
look
the
into it
American
already.
Academy of
You're
This
Pediatrics
is
overdue.
the
hasn't
equivalency of
overdue.
looked at the
language that they
studies.
talk about. Beemore does it with fucking anti-vax as well as abuse. He's saying if I don't know the studies that Corey Campbell's citing right now,
No,
I'm an
it's not
anti-vaxxer.
about
That
not
is what he
knowing the
fucking said
studies.
right here on this
No.
panel, and this is
We're
why
not
he's a
doubting the
fucking
study, we're
moron,
just-
No, that's not
because
the
this
word.
kind of thing is
No.
stupid. It's
No, the whole
Okay,
point is that
okay.
you've had these discussions repeatedly. You've heard about these
okay.
studies, and now you're acting like I've
Sure,
never seen
sure,
these
sure.
before.
Hold on. It's just okay. Katie.
What?
Oh, I thought you had your hand
no,
up. so-
it's
oh,
just
sorry.
like, it's not about like believing the studies. It's just like the whole argument is that there's a large body of scientists that's their job to like investigate this, and they came with like very specific directions, like don't hit your kids because that's abuse, and that's like their prescription. And then people are like, but I haven't looked at the studies. And then people like Corey are like, maybe that's a bit like anti-intellectualism. Maybe that's a bit
is.
like pretentious or weird.
So
Maybe
do
that's a
you
bit
think that
anti-vaccine.
if I said I had 5 studies, right? I have 5 studies. I link you 5 articles that say actually you're wrong. Actually, spanking is a net good and positive. Do you think that you would be that you should simply believe me because I said it's true?
First step
Wait,
is
that's
provide
not what
those
I
studies.
said at all.
Provide
Okay,
them.
so if I bring 5 random articles, they don't. What I'm saying is, if I'm
Random
being
No, no, no,
dishonest,
no! Don't move the goalposts now.
sure,
No,
okay,
no.
I will.
Find
Okay,
those studies.
then, but you
I'll
can't
wait.
look at them. But you can't look at them. That's the thing.
No,
You can't
fine.
look
I
at the
am-
studies.
I am
They're
not
wrong
on-
in any
I
way,
am-
shape,
No,
or
this
form.
is no.
Find them.
He's not making. He's
Yeah.
not making the argument. All he's making the argument is that like we don't have enough time to actually work through a list of studies. And okay, sorry, this is like shifted all over the place, right? And like even what we're disagreeing about has shifted. Like what originally Corey made a statement, right? And then Beemore, Wick, and I asked him to back up that specific statement. And then it became a larger conversation about like corporal punishment. And then now we're talking about like panel etiquette. Like it's shifted many times here, all right? So okay. It's abusive. No, we can all agree that Corey's abused us all. I think
No,
we can come to that consensus.
I don't believe that crosses the abusive threshold,
Uh,
and you should not muddy the waters like
I
that.
should not
Don't
muddy
use
the
abuse
waters.
law.
Yeah.
But I've
Yeah,
found
I've
something
not been
with you to show
abused.
it
It's on a
does. You should
spectrum.
trust me.
I've not been
right?
abused.
This is the particular type of abuse that I actually like. So what
Uh,
now?
Oh, so there is abuse.
Well,
that's
if
My-
you
happening.
my-
like it, maybe you
my-
owe him something for it. Are you gonna pay him money
Oh.
now?
Yeah, the debt's been racking up since
I
the panel
see.
began. So I'm,
So when are
Wait,
you gonna
wait,
have
wait.
my
Are we
child?
gonna get to
I
this
see.
point?
Look, look,
Are
look.
we
I've
gonna
been
get to the
subbed
point where
Prime for like 20
panelists,
months. I paid.
panelists, what?
I'm waiting for a panelist to be like, I was spanked and I came out really well, so I owe my parents money for spanking me. We're like this close. We're waiting for it.
Well,
Can't wait
for
Katie, if I paid an adult woman now to spank me, right? Like, if it's just, I think she'd be
It's
owed
the
money
same
if
thing,
she
right?
spanked me.
Is
Like,
it-
that's
No,
the
it's
thing. So I
consensual.
don't know.
That's
That's
consensual.
exactly the same. You're
That's
right.
exactly
That's
the same.
completely equivalent, Prime. That's
It is.
excellent thinking right there. That's good.
Providing me a service. I don't know what to tell you.
Any gifters?
And that's what the parents that spank their children thinks. They're providing them a service.
Yeah, like
You
Katie,
should
look.
provide a service to Prime. Prime's providing you a service, audience, and you should pay him for his services by gifting subs, cheering bits, and following him if you haven't yet.
You know what? The best thing to
Or
do
other
actually, Wick,
favors.
is to lead by example. I already donated a gifted sub to an amazing individual called Venom Jesus, and I would love for you to follow your own advice.
Well, I am subbed as well, and if
you
my
don't have
PayPal,
to.
No,
if my
you-
PayPal works,
You
I
don't
can't-
have to. Your
I just-
statement
I
is on a
can't get it.
spectrum.
You-
know,
you-
like,
you-
literally.
Yes,
like, you
support
don't
is
have
on the
to.
spectrum here, guys. It's on full
Yeah, the
display.
support is on a spectrum. He doesn't
I'm
actually
giving
have to prove
content
it.
to this
Yeah,
panel.
he's physically.
You know, I
yeah,
don't want
exactly.
you to use the word support, okay? You just it's like saying calling someone a Nazi.
No,
Okay.
he's still
Um,
helping. He's still helping.
The question
know.
is,
If it's-
do
if it's-
we owe Prime money or does he owe us money?
Oh, he owes
for
us.
We're
being
gonna-
on
It's not
the
a
panel?
we
question
should
at
definitely
all.
review.
I
Right.
gave you a
That's why he's
space, right?
abusing us.
Where you could like yell at each other in front of random people on the internet, right? It's a very valuable product. No, you owe me
But
money.
you created me, so you owe me
I
this
did-
thing.
I
And
did
when
create
I'm an
you.
adult,
Exactly.
maybe I'll pay you back, right?
Just everybody, for the record, Wick has yet to donate a sub. He does not want to support black.
It's on a
content
spectrum.
creators.
Let's
Oh,
not
man.
support shame. That is let's
racial
stop
abuse.
support shaming.
Racial abuse in action.
This is just not good. It's just
This
not
is
good.
basically slavery.
shaming
Wake
for
is
sure.
basically a slave.
Just remember, everybody, I have to support my own because they won't. Okay, this is a
Fuck 'em.
boo-boo, okay? For us, by us, okay?
All right. I love this. I love where this has gone. As long as everyone's hands are dirty by the end of this, you're all guilty of something, then I think we've all succeeded.
You're fine with that.
Yeah, I'm an
Well,
admitted
okay.
abuser towards everyone on the panel. I'll bite that bullet.
And we have like 2 anti-vaxxers, and I'm sure I
Okay,
did
no,
something.
no,
I'm an
one
incubator.
anti-vaxxer. I got.
Fine,
No.
okay. It's never too late.
No,
I accepted.
no, what
I
you-
accepted Corey's conclusion. I said that.
Well,
For
well,
now,
hold
I
on.
accept Corey's.
Katie,
I
what
respect you,
your
Sly
sin is being
Much
a
respect.
bad businesswoman, right? You have this incubator space that you have not been using. and-
Oh no, I don't want to hear that.
Oh
That's
my
terrible.
god! Oh my god!
Oh my god. Look, Prime's hands have always been dirty, but right now they're dirtier.
Prime, I will sell you my incubator, and like you can take it. And if you pay me, I'd
I said
appreciate
rented incubator space.
Right there.
it.
Oh, he has to rent.
Yeah, because I want you to own and operate it. I just wanna-
Oh
It's
shit,
a-
this is bad.
Not in the States. I don't trust you people. Maybe
Fair
where
enough.
I'm-
Fair enough. Okay.
You
Thank
people.
you.
What do you
Don't
mean,
trust
you
us.
people?
Don't trust
Uh-huh.
us. Don't do it.
I know exactly what Katie means by you people. All right, like that's a different conversation. This is great.
Well, let's see.
A
Look,
death
Sly
discerning-
Jinx donated for us by us. Again, this is another example on how Wick
Yo, I
and
donated
Corey.
too. I donated too. I
Andy.
just didn't give a sub. I gave direct donations, which Prime gets
Look,
more
there's a
of,
gender
but-
pay gap,
He
okay,
did.
Katie? You're excluded from this,
He-
okay?
he-
Enjoy it.
Oh, yay! I get to
You
be
are
excluded.
a part of minority gang. Let's get it.
So okay. Thank you.
He's
Okay.
just exercising his
So
privilege.
thank you 1 second. Thank you, our good friend Be More for being so kind, giving us up to Venom Jesus. Thank you, Sly Jenks, for gifting your first up to Ginger Rama. Thank you so much. That's really kind of you. Thank you, Sly Jenks. Right, and then Desperado Sensei coming in with the win with 5 subs. Oh, they just reached 100. Oh, awesome. Did you just reach 100 subs? All right, then. Let's take care of that. Let's give you VIP. And Headless Chicken, thank you for resubbing for 2 months. We at a level 1 hype train. Level 1 hype. Why are we on a level 1 hype train? That's weird. We should not be a level 1 hype train. We should be more than that. Hype train's busted. We're level 1 hype train. 50% down, 50% left. Can we get to level 2 hype train? Even though we really should be there already. I don't know what's up with the hype train. Well, 3.5 minutes on the clock. How about this community? If you're appreciating this content, appreciating the laughs, appreciating the serious discussions, right? The heated moments and all of that. Now's the time. Help us out. Subs to the channel, gift bits, or gift subs. Gift another sub. Hopefully, can move the thing along because it should be farther than that. I don't know why it's only like Desperado alone should have put it in level 2 hype train. It's fucking weird. It does it sometimes. Yeah, like it gets stuck. Literally, the train gets stuck, right? Like there's like a cow on the tracks. Like it's fucking.
You can also donate via the PayPal button, which some people have done, and that counts too.
Indeed, you can. Thank you. It means a lot. Does a lot. Thank you, Tones Girl, for being so kind as to gift the sub as well to Spicy Candor. Okay. I'll take care of this in a second, guys. How about the hype train? Let's get to a level 2 hype train, and hopefully by then it'll decide that like 5 subs gives what 5 subs does. All right, anyway, how about hype train? Subs channel, keep it gift up. Usually Amazon Prime says Prime Gaming on this channel. We have 2.5 minutes left.
Prime.
Can we make it level 2? Yeah.
Prime for Prime.
Prime for Prime. Exactly. All right. Let's give an outro to all these great individuals. I'll be jumping in every so often to cheer on the hype train. 2 minutes left. Yep. But everyone, thanks so much, seriously, for the kindness, for helping out this, for coming through and being a part of this. This is a really good discussion, right? I think some of you came in thinking that we weren't going to have a good discussion, Wick, Katie, right? Like, oh, who would disagree on this, right? We had a lot to say on this. A lot. All right. I knew this was going to be a fire topic.
Called them out.
Yeah. See, Sly, he always believed. So
Yep.
So yeah, thanks so much for that. Okay. We'll give outros. We have 90 seconds on the hype train. Let's see if we can get to a level 2 hype train. Subs to the channel, keep it some good subs. Wick, thank you so much for stopping by, for being a part of this. Wick is a fantastic individual, and he always a great help to his community. So I thank you, Wick, for coming through once again. And also, a quick thing, we'll have open panel after this, so stick around. The content doesn't end. We're still going after this, okay? Stick around for that. But yeah, Wick, please tell a little about yourself.
Oh, well, you can find me at twitch.tv/deathascertainty, where we have all sorts of interesting discussions. I do an open call-in show every Tuesday with Kaylee Marie, where if you hate my takes or you love my takes or you have questions on my takes, you can call in and interact with me directly. And even if you don't have any questions or anything, you just want to talk to us about something on your mind, you can call in and talk about that. This Monday, we're going to have Lactoid, the bane of leftists, handle a bunch of people talking about protests, the purpose of protests, and what is or should be considered ethical when it comes to protesting. Is it okay to protest in front of government officials' houses? Find out. 6 p.m. Eastern, Monday. And then Friday, PrimeCayes actually coming on my show. And that's going to be an interesting discussion. So we're going to be talking about the ethics of platforming, but in a little bit of a different twist. Not talking about the person's ideology, but the person's mental state. If someone's sloppy drunk, is it okay to platform them? If someone is having a mental breakdown and expresses they want to come on your stream anyway and stay on your stream, at what point do you tell them, hey, no, for your own benefit, we're going to show you the door? We're going to find out. We're going to have some other amazing guests there too, and we'll let you know. 7 p.m. on Friday Eastern time. Twitch.tv/Death of Certainty. Also, to give a small closing statement to this, I think that language use is important. We need to be specific with our language. And yes, children and parents both have a familial duty towards each other. Where that lies and the lines, obviously there's difference of opinions on that, but I do think that if someone helps you out, you should help them out. That's all. Thank you.
Unbelievable. So thank you for like after that. Like the hype train really was broken. It said like thanks for level 0 support, right? Like we like,
Damn,
it literally was broken.
damn.
It was fucking
No,
broken.
It's cracking
Twitch,
a
get your
joke on
shit
you.
together. Oh my god, what the fuck? Like holy shit. Like it was literally broken, right? It was
When
All
the
right,
train is
anyway.
talking shit about you, it's
Oh
funny
my
as
god,
heck.
it's really fucking
Oh,
annoying. Anyway,
shit.
guys, you can still support the channel outside of via Hype Train. Sub to the channel, get bits or get subs. The Hype Train is actually busted. Holy fuck. But anyway, thank you for that, Wick, and thank you everyone who supported previously. We'll get to them. All right, Sly Jenks. As always, thank you for coming through. Right, you're a fantastic addition. I'm really glad that we found you. Actually, you found us. You came. You just wandered into the channel before. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm Sly Jenks. I have sort of been. I'm more of like a lurker, so kind of stuck around, watch Prime for a little bit. Sometimes see if he was a good guy. Determined he had pretty shit takes, and it was the perfect home for me. And thank you for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation. Obviously, Be More, always passionate about what he believes. Corey bringing the facts. Katie also passionate as well, and bringing the facts too. And then obviously, Wick is gonna Wick. But as I'm finding my way on the Twitch platform a little bit, I'm kind of learning about you guys. It's pretty cool. And having this opportunity to do this. So, thanks for having me again.
Wick is going to Wick. That's the one that should stick right there, right?
Wick's gonna Wick.
But
Wick.
thank you so much, Sly Jenks. All right, next, B More, one of the great ones, right? And
Yeah.
he keeps proving it every time I say like, isn't Be More amazing, right? And he keeps putting up a great conversation and great quips and all that good stuff. So thank you, Be More, for being here.
So I'm not a streamer, so I always like to shout out somebody, right? And today, who I want to shout out is a streamer who is a trait that I actually appreciate, like the trait of just not being scared to be wrong. It's a beautiful thing, and because of that, I have to shout out Wick. Check him out. He's an amazing streamer. He had an amazing interview with the legendary Venom Jesus, someone historically who's rarely, if ever, wrong. Check it out. Wick has the vibe posted up on his channel. Scroll along, you'll find it along with some other videos. And other than that, good luck. Have fun, everybody.
All right. All right. Next, we have Corey Campbell. Corey, you provided a lot of great conversation. I really enjoyed interacting with you. All right. That was a lot of fun. We got to be doing it again. Thank you so much.
First I want to thank you, Prime, for reaching out. Much appreciated. And also thank you everyone else on the panel. Super grateful to be here with Katie, B More, Sly Jenks, and Wick. Definitely, I always appreciate good, heated discussion. I'm Corey Campbell. You can find me on Twitch, Corey Campbell84. And on Twitter and Instagram, literally, it's Corey Campbell. I cover science, I cover politics, I do workout streams occasionally. And I'll be covering some of the spanking research once I'm done here.
Please do. All right. Yeah. Thanks so much. And finally, we have a very special lady. We have my friend Katie, who's here, right? And she puts up a great fight. Oh man, I love talking to Katie. I love having disagreements with Katie and exploring those disagreements with her because it's always like a really good time, right? And she comes at it from everything from interesting perspectives, right? And usually her level of argumentation outclasses everyone. So thank you, Katie, right? For lowering yourself to be on this channel. So Katie, thanks so much for being here.
So I'm renting out some incubator space if people are interested. Hit me up. I have a Discord.
Oh
I
man.
I take money. It's instead of an OnlyFans, you know, it's like something different. I was trying out something new. Yeah, thank you, Prime. I have fun. It was good. It was nice. I liked the Doobie bit today. I haven't seen Doobie in a while, so I'm happy someone was here to make really weird, contentious arguments. Except for Wick, obviously. And
Yeah, fuck Wick. I want that to catch on. Fuck Wick.
And Wick, you owe me an interview.
I do. And if you're
So,
available
yeah.
this Thursday, we can do that. So
All right.
Amen.
Wix interviews are apparently legendary, so check out both of their channels. They're fantastic individuals. All these people are amazing. All right. So we'll continue on with Open Walk On panel right after this. For audience members like you, yes, you're sitting at home may participate. Anyone here can join us, but if not, that's okay. Thanks for your time, your energy, your knowledge, and your passion with my community. I know they appreciate it just as much as I do. Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.